City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Here.
Alderman Suffredin. Here. Alderman Ravel. Here. Alderman Rainey. Here. Alderman Fleming.
Here.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Here. Alderman Nguyen. Here. Alderman Wilson. Here. And Mayor Haggerty.
Here. All right, welcome everyone to the Monday, November 13th, 2017 City Council meeting. This is what engagement looks like. There are a lot of people in this room and in the overflow rooms, and I know there's a lot of pressing and important issues on the agenda, and I know that our city council up here is interested in having a conversation about them and then a vote on some of those issues tonight. Before we get to that, two announcements that I wanted to make. One is this week, November 11th to the 19th, is National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. I know there are a lot of people in this community that are working on those issues, and I think it's important for us to just keep in mind the relativeness of all of the issues that we are all working on and that we're all passionate about. But this week in particular, keep in mind the hunger and homeless in our community. Secondly, I have a proclamation that I want to give this evening that means a lot to a lot of people, and it is the 50th anniversary of the Special Olympics. And for my family, I know I have a nephew who is has severe needs and has been a participant in Special Olympics for many years, and it's a really special day for him, and I know it's a special moment whenever these happen for families all across this country. So I would just like to present this to folks that we have here from the Special Olympics. We have Lisa Kaya and her husband. Come on up, and we also have Chris Winston, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of the Special Olympics. Come on over here. It's great to. All right, this is working. I'm getting older, so I can't see things. I can't see things up close. I've got to take my glasses off. Special Olympics 50th anniversary. Whereas Special Olympics is celebrating its 50th anniversary, and whereas in the 1950s and 1960s, little justice was shown in the treatment of people with intellectual disabilities, and whereas Eunice Kennedy Shriver, a pioneer for the rights and acceptance of people with intellectual disabilities, founded Special Olympics, and whereas Special Olympics athletes are children and adults from all around the world, and whereas Special Olympics has evolved from exclusive sports for people with intellectual disabilities to inclusive or unified sports, bringing together people with and without intellectual disabilities. And whereas Special Olympics is the world's largest sports organization for people with intellectual disabilities, with over 1 million volunteers and more than 4.9 million athletes in 172 countries around the world. Now, therefore, I, Stephen Howard Haggerty, Mayor of the City of Evanston, do hereby proclaim July 20th, 2017 through July 20th, 2018 as the year of Special Olympics in Evanston, recognizing this important milestone throughout the City of Evanston and all over the world. Thank you for all that you are doing for special people in this community and all around the country.
Thank you.
It's in marketing. I better know how to do this.
But is there going to be, he's going to walk there.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. And thank you.
There you go. Get your coat.
All right, we're going to have a contest. How many people do you think signed up for public comment tonight? Any guesses? I think we have 80. Do we have the? Oh, excuse me. I'm just giving you. I'm just wetting your whistle because I jumped ahead from our city manager's important announcements, and then we'll get to public comment that you're all waiting for.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. We have two presentations regarding some awards we've recently won. Laura Biggs, the city engineer, is here with Sat Nagar. Ms. Biggs, good evening.
Mayor Haggerty, Clerk Reed, and members of the City Council. I am honored tonight to inform you of two awards that we've recently won for our critical infrastructure projects. So on October 23rd, the City of Evanston received a Sustainable Landscaping Award from the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. This is in recognition of our commitment to using green infrastructure for stormwater management on our Civic Center parking lot project. This project was partially funded by an MWRD grant, and the design was completed in-house with our engineering staff. So this one is particularly meaningful. And Sat Nagar was one of the project managers who led this project, along with Stephanie Levine. So he has the first of these awards, which was a lovely glass medallion that we received. And then the second award that we received on November 2nd, Design Evanston presented the city with an award in urban design for the innovative and thoughtful implementation of bike lanes on Chicago Avenue. So this project is a great example of a multimodal corridor implementation in which we were able to increase safety by giving different users of the roadway their own space to be in, and is wonderful to win sort of a homegrown community award for our efforts. So we're very proud of these, and we wanted to present them to you. And here is the Design Evanston Award.
Thank you. And we'll make sure that those get a proper place in the Civic Center to be displayed. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And lastly, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this week is Winter Awareness Week. We always start right after the first snow, it seems, but we want to make sure that people are aware of the various ways that they can be notified when there are snow route parking bans and snow emergencies. We did a video, which I think in the interest of time we will not show this evening, but we have it on Facebook and Twitter and various social media areas. 5 things you need to know about snow in Evanston. Certainly how you can find out about snow route parking bans and snow emergencies, that yes, we do have sirens, and those sirens go off at different times for a snow route parking ban versus a snow emergency. We also require individuals, businesses, and multi-unit property owners to shovel sidewalks adjacent to their properties. So all that is mentioned in the video. You can go to the city's website, cityofevanston.org/snow, and see all that information as well. So we're going to be spending this week working through various media outlets to help remind folks it's winter in Evanston and things that they need to remember. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. City Manager. City Clerk, any communications?
If I may save communications to the very end, very short, to a call with awards. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, thank you. All right, we have, I haven't even gotten through counting all of the public comment, folks that would like to do public comment. 82, okay. So we have 82 people for public comment. So I think everybody knows the city council rules, which are we set aside 45 minutes for public comment. We divide the number of folks that want to speak by the 45 minutes, and that becomes the time. So it's, I think somebody just told me it's 27 seconds. All right, that's not much time. That's not much time. So it looks like most of the folks just flipping through here would like to get up and talk about either the Albion project, which is on the agenda tonight, or the Lake House, or the Harley Clark Mansion, and there's the proposal from the Evanston Lake House and Garden Group. There's also a few people here that want to talk about the budget. My suggestion to the city council and to all of you to be respectful, but also to focus on making sure that the council up here has an opportunity to discuss among themselves these important issues and vote on these issues. I'm concerned if I try to put all 82 people up front and give you, let's say, a minute, that it doesn't give this council enough time. So what I would propose to the council is that I will go through here and select order, please. I will go through here and I'm trying to be fair and make sure different comments get heard. So if the first 42 people or 40 people up here are all Albion, and the people that came here for the Lake House group then don't have a chance to talk, I don't think that's right, because the council is going to have to consider all of those issues. So you have the right to sign up, and I have the right as a parliamentarian and presider of this to make sure that we have an effective meeting. Okay, that's important for our community and important for the people that are up here. So here's what I'm going to suggest, is that I will give everyone 1 minute, okay, for the first 40. Okay, that'll take us, I think, with the overlap that sometimes happens, to 45 minutes. I am then going to move to the special order of business. Okay, on the special order of business, we're going to cover Harley Clark, and then we are going to move the budget special order of business until after we've gone through the consent agenda and the meetings. And then I will come back to public comment at the end of the meeting to hit the rest of the people that signed up for public comment. Okay? I understand. Again, I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time here and make sure you guys have the chance. Let's just have a quick conversation. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really think everyone needs to speak at the beginning of the meeting, and I would hope that they would respect what is the normal practice of, if someone is repeating what someone else has said, that they decline to speak. I think if that's the case, we will stay within the 45 minutes, so I'd rather take that approach. I think otherwise...
Give everyone, just so I'm clear, Alderman Fisk, give everybody 30 seconds.
Give everybody 30 seconds, and let's just start it and see how it goes.
I would just recommend that, one, that I think that we should give everyone a minute, and that what we should do is just make sure that, I think one of the things we really have to do is make sure that we hold council meetings at a time where we can allow for the public to comment. It's a proposal that I've made in the future, and I think that that's the change that we should make.
Alderman Wilson.
We have the rule, the 30 seconds per person is going to go significantly over that, but we actually have to do the work. So it's important to hear what people have to say, but I think we've all been hearing from the community on an ongoing basis. I do want to hear from every single person tonight, but hopefully, in conjunction with all the things that have been submitted, the emails and everything else, they can kind of hit the high points in that 30 seconds. If we spend a minute, inevitably a few people go over, and we're looking at, a minimum of getting started, close to 10 o'clock. And then, people who are interested in hearing what we do, nobody wants to be sitting here at midnight when we start a conversation about, X, Y, or Z. So I think it's important to hear everybody, but it's also important to get the work done while people are still here to actually participate and hear what's being said.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do 30 seconds for each speaker. Okay, so we're going to get through this 82. I am going to ask you guys to be respectful of the 30 seconds. If you have a key point, just get up here and make that key point. If you're with a group, organize and make sure that each of you, when you get your chance for the 30 seconds, are hitting on your key points. Okay. All right. So with that, I will rattle off the top three. I apologize as always if I'm mispronouncing names or I can't properly read things. I'll do four because I know we have a lot there. So the first speaker is Ivan Hall. Then next up will be Robert Ward, Mike Vasilko, and then Annie Coakley. And again, we're going to do 30 seconds each.
Are we starting the stopwatch? All right. My family moved here in 1972. I've been all over this country. Evanston's a very special corner, but what makes it so is disappearing at a rapid rate. I've seen historic churches, Victorian homes, and theaters torn down and replaced with mediocrity at best, and at worst, places like Chicago Avenue Place that looks like a public housing project with balconies. This town already has congestion problems. We created dark daytime and wind tunnels. The 10 more seconds. Thanks for interrupting. So I would just oppose this vote, oppose the 30-story disaster next to Chase Bank and the unfathomable destruction of the Varsity Theater. We're going to remember how you vote when we go to the polls.
Thank you, Ivan. Next, Robert Ward, Mike Vasilko, Annie Coakley, Tom Hodgman.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Bob Ward. I live at 719 Monticello Place. My wife Jean and I have lived there for 42 years, or lived in Evanston for 42 years. This is on the Lake House, and the key point here is we should not be talking about the building out of the context of the preservation of one of the greatest natural treasures and resources that any city will ever have, and that is the Evanston lakefront and the dune property behind it. Unless we take into account the profound significance of that resource, that gift, that place to our culture and to our lives, we are missing the boat, and we are wasting our time talking about Harley Clark.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks.
Mike Vasilko, Annie Coakley, Tom Hodgman, Bill Brown.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me for 1 second, Alderman Braithwaite.
Just a quick comment. I've noticed that there are a number of people that have their speeches in hand, and just if they don't get through it, to please submit your comments to the clerk so they can be entered into our formal minutes.
Thank you, Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I asked the city to reject the Lake House and Gardens proposal. It is incomplete. It calls for the city to contribute $250,000 of money we don't have. The financial projections are more hope than fact. The renovation and restoration costs are greatly underestimated, including site utilities that are overlooked. There's a lot of icing on this cake, but the cake is hollow. You would be buying a pig in a poke for $12 of rent per year for 40 years. Also, there was a 6th and 7th Ward meeting where the citizens spoke loudly and clearly about not raising taxes, fees, and fines. 100 people attended. Not one person spoke in favor of raising taxes. Please don't raise our taxes.
Thank you, Mike. All right. Again, I'm going to ask everybody, please try to keep to the 30 seconds. I'm going to say a thank you in your name when you're at the 30 seconds, so you know you're getting there. Annie.
Good evening, Annie Coakley, Director of Downtown Evanston. Tonight, I'm here to inform you that I have been meeting with Albion Residential to address construction and parking issues and their impact on the surrounding small businesses of this proposed development. Please note this is not a letter of support from Downtown Evanston, rather an agreement proposed by Albion Development. As the District Management Association for Downtown, Albion has agreed to provide a $10,000 commitment to Downtown Evanston to administer for advertising, marketing campaigns, and promotions specifically to be used for the businesses adjacent to the proposed site.
Thank you, Annie. Great. Perfect. Tom Hodgman, Bill Brown, Yoli Joseph, and Aaron Packman.
Good evening. I'm the president of Evanston Lake House and Gardens and a resident of the 7th Ward. Tonight you will hear from a number of our board members and supporters, many of them longtime Evanston residents, about what the Lake House plan means to them. We have a strong plan backed by numerous organizations across Evanston and the state. It has been well vetted and recommended by the Harley Clark Planning Committee, and now we are the only group to respond to the city's RFP. Our plan meets the multiple objectives, including financial viability, historic preservation, a high-quality public use, and it is consistent with the Lakefront Master Plan. By repurposing the building for environmental and cultural education, we gain equitable education opportunities in our community.
Thank you, Tom.
We've already secured over 100,000 commitments from 100 individuals despite uncertainty regarding a lease. We're excited to enter a lease. A vote tonight for us is a step in the right direction to create a community lake house for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bill Brown, Yoli Joseph, Aaron Packman, and then Janelle Johnson.
Good evening. My name is William Brown. I'm an Evanston resident for 40 years, 27 years in the 8th Ward. I'm an active member of the Harley Clark Board, and I feel strongly that the excellent proposal from Evanston Lake House and Garden presents you with a unique opportunity for private-public partnership that will transform vacant Harley Clark House and surrounding grounds into a vital resource for the entire Evanston community. I urge you to exercise your vision as city leaders and vote yes on this exciting opportunity to partner with a dedicated and capable team of the Evanston Lake House and Garden. I believe that the risk to the city is negligible, while the potential benefit for all Evanstonians are enormous.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yoli, Aaron Packman, Janelle Johnson, then Claire Talon.
Yoli Joseph, Executive Director of Lumen Kids. We owe it to the people who have walked before us to act in stewardship and reconciliation towards the special green space that remains a critical community asset. Restoring and repurposing Harley Clark as an educational space is the best way to connect people in an equitable manner to our shared cultural and natural resources. I would ask the council to consider our proposal to create a space that continues to foster the spirit of community and freedom for all peoples upon which this noble town was founded. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Aaron Packman, Janelle Johnson, Claire Talon, and then Carla Sutton.
I'm Aaron Packman. I'm a resident of Evanston 6th Ward, and I'm a professor of civil environmental engineering at Northwestern University. I got involved in the Harley Clark discussion at the behest of the city's planning committee, and I've reviewed the plans by Evanston Lake House and Gardens and the competitors. In my view, educational use of Harley Clark, including the lakefront property, requires a building to stage indoor-outdoor education activities. This could be a landmark opportunity for the city to make a facility that would draw people from across the North Shore and strongly support our public schools. There's a wide range of professional scientists, engineers, and educators who are highly interested in developing educational programs for the space.
Thank you.
But it requires a building.
Thank you. Janelle, then Claire Talon, Carl Sutton, and Neil Vogel.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Johnson. I am a resident of the 2nd Ward and board member of the Evanston Lake House and Gardens. I'm a licensed landscape architect and a member of the American Society of Landscape Architects, where I work on diversity and inclusion initiatives that bring awareness and early exposure to the profession to a broad cross-section of young citizens. I believe the proposal, as put forth by the Evanston Lake House and Gardens, is an amazing opportunity to democratize the lakefront. The proposed educational programming for the mansion and grounds is positioned to bridge the gap between various Evanston communities and the lakefront by providing equitable access to nature, design, culture, and more. Thank you for your time and your service, and I ask you that you vote in favor of the proposal.
Thank you, Janelle. Claire Talon, Carla Sutton, Neil Vogel, Sarah Shostak.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Haggerty. My name is Claire Talon Ruin, and I am a 9th Ward resident, and I am founding director of Lake Dance, which is an experiential Great Lakes education program that uses art as teaching tools. Since 2008, I have run a program with the Alliance for the Great Lakes, Illinois Coastal Management Program in District 65, to bring students from every school in District 65 to the lake. The third grade program focuses on the Lighthouse Beach and Dunes. So every year, 750 public school students from all walks of life are exploring these dunes, which, by the way, aren't actually a natural feature of our coast. They were created in the 70s as an educational feature.
Thank you, Claire. We're at our 30.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Carlos Sutton. We have Carlos here. Okay, if we don't have Carlos, we'll put him back if he comes up. Neil Vogel, come on.
Thank you. I've been working in historic preservation for 35 years, and I am an advocate of the Evanston Lake House and Gardens program and proposal. We surveyed the building several years ago for the city. We found that the Ludowici roof tiles are over 90 years old, still in excellent condition. The Hope steel windows are the best quality you could buy at the time. The house was $9 million to build at the time. And you don't just waste a structure like that. It's important to the historic preservation and the character of Evanston. We have a house in the dunes. I know that it's not mutually exclusive, that you can't have great landscape and appreciate the landscape in the house at the same time. During the summer months, the place is packed in the Indiana Dunes. 9 months out of the year, it's empty. That's the way it will be here. It will not be used year-round if you don't have a structure there to support the services.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Great. Sarah Shostak, Patrick Donnelly, Sheila Sullivan, Mark Sloan.
Good evening. I'm here speaking from my experience as the former CEO of the Community Foundation to say that I think the resources for the Lake House and Garden project seem well within our reach. I say this because in the past decade or so, close to $35 million has been raised for just 4 capital projects alone. Evanston History Center, $2.4 million, $15 million plus for YOU, $7.3 million for ECF's Single Every Child project, $2.7 million of that from local donors, and your Robert Crown campaign at $10 million and counting. So with big lead gifts, board giving, and matching funds, $5 million phased in 2 phases for the Lake House and Garden is possible.
Thank you, Sarah. Excellent. All right, Patrick Donnelly, Sheila Sullivan, Mark Sloan.
Hey guys, I'm with the Lake House Group. You've heard me say it all, I think. So I just wanted to thank you for voting to not rip it down. Thank you for voting to keep this house. And I think for anyone that was going to vote no tonight, it's kind of like voting against goodness. I mean, what we're doing is just for the good. And for those of you that think we can't raise money, we've met with a lot of rich people, and they like this plan. We can talk more about that, but thank you. And please vote yes.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, we have Sheila Sullivan, then Mark Sloan, Hector Garcia, and then Jackie April.
My name is Sheila Sullivan. I'm on the board of directors of the Southeast Evanston Association. During the 50 years we've been around, we've learned a thing or two about municipal governance. For the last 4 years, we participated in the Harley Clark process. It's been a long slog, but we finally got to where we are this evening. You now have a solid, thoughtful proposal from Evanston Lake House in front of you. Although you only received 1 proposal, we are all very fortunate it's from an extremely qualified organization. You couldn't ask for a more dedicated, knowledgeable, and talented group of people with the necessary mix of professional experience to manage this property to the maximum public benefit.
Thank you, Sheila.
We as a city need to embrace this opportunity we have before us and move forward.
Thank you. Mark? We got Mark, Hector, Jackie April, and then Laurie Keenan.
Good evening, Mark Sloan speaking on behalf of Central Street Neighbors Association. In July 2013, the Central Street Neighbors Association adopted a position supporting public use, ownership, and conservation of the park, beach, and Harley Clark House at Lighthouse Beach. In April of 2015, we again reaffirmed and amplified our position that the parkland, beachfront, gardens, and mansions should remain in the public domain in perpetuity to provide for recreation, cultural, historic, artistic, educational, and similar public-oriented, public-spirited uses that provide services and directly benefit the community. Evanston Lake House and Gardens proposal has respected the preferences and uses urged by CSNA and is compatible with those. We believe their vision for the property, once realized, would enjoy wide support from the community and create an attractive community amenity that would augment Evanston's image.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. All right, Hector Garcia, Jackie April, Laurie Keenan, and Jeff Smith.
Good evening. My name is Hector Garcia. I lived on the Second Ward for more than 16 years. I've been a member of the Parks, Recreation, and Services Board for 4 years and joined the Harley Clark Planning Committee. On these meetings, the community expressed their support to preserve the mansion. I hope the city can support the Lake House and Gardens proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. All right, Jackie, and then Laurie Keenan, Jeff Smith, and Kelly Nelson.
Hi, Jackie Prince. I have 30 seconds, so hi, everybody. Don't mean to be informal. I say no to Albion. There's not enough affordable housing for Evanstonians. Keep the lakefront as it is. Keep our historical buildings. Things were good enough for you guys to move here and come here and congregate and want to live here and raise your families. Some things are beautiful on its own, so just leave it alone. No to you arresting minorities and putting handcuffs on former students. And thank you to everyone that donates to First Presbyterian Church, Beth Emmett's Coat Drive, which is the third week in December, Connections for the Homeless, and no to Connections for the Homeless who does not house women.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you for all the clothing that you've donated. I am wearing hobo chic tonight. Thank you for your donations.
Thank you
Have a
for
good evening.
coming again, Jackie. All right. We finished one page, just if you're keeping track. I think we have 5. All right, Laurie.
My name is Lori Keenan. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Evanston residents as a board member of D.J. Coleman Foundation, co-president of Evanston Public Library Friends, and now a member of the advisory board for Evanston Lake House and Gardens, plus the countless other groups I volunteered my time with. I've often said the volunteers in Evanston I've worked with over the past 20 years could run a small nation. They're some of the brightest, most talented, and creative problem solvers I've ever met. Through these efforts, I'd stood right here and been warned about every obstacle we could ever encounter, how we don't have the money or why it can't be done. And yet, despite these objections, we've accomplished our goals, making Evanston an even better community. When the South Branch of Evanston Public Library was shuttered, we established Evanston Public Library Friends Not-for-Profit, paid the rent, opened a new library in a month, and it's now been folded into the Evanston Public Library system.
Thank you,
We're
Laura.
currently working to fundraise for the Robert Crown Project. So before you're tempted to say it can't be done, I encourage you to take a step back to your grassroots roots and put faith in the Evanston residents. Believe in us and work with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. All right, Jeff Smith. Just so everybody knows, Jeff Smith, and we have Kelly Nelson, Ariel Jackson, I think, and Robert Darlimple.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Half a year ago in June, Alderman Revell's committee and city staff recommended quite publicly that the city council negotiate a long-term lease with Evanston Lake House and Gardens. While the entire process up to that point had been transparent and open to anyone with an idea, this council, going the extra mile, directed the use of the RFP process in case there was anyone else who had a competing proposal. The Lake House Gardens plan, by which our community will receive the benefit of an estimated $5 million in materials, labor, and services directed toward a public asset, is the only proposal responsive to the RFP for one simple reason. It's the best idea in Evanston for the property. The idea of investing in, preserving, and restoring what we have for public use has had consistent and considerable public support since at least the fall of 2013 in the Paris Hall Room.
Thank you, Jeff.
Directing the city staff to negotiate a long-term lease to ELHG is not only the best idea on the table, it will make a statement that this city respects its own processes and trusts its own citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, Kelly Nelson, Ariel Jackson, Robert Darlimple, and then Madeline Jealous.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kelly Nelson. I'm here from Victim Services with the Evanston Police Department. I'm coming before you tonight to express my concerns about the elimination of Victim Services under the Police Department and moving it under Health and Human Services. First, we were told that it was a budgetary issue. There are currently 2 full-time advocates, and the proposal is to hire 1 full-time advocate and 3 part-time advocates. The question is that really a savings? Someone is going to have to provide call-out services, so you might as well have the 2 full-time advocates with experience providing those services. Also, we've been referred to as a referral service. We do provide crisis counseling, which is designed to be short-term. We have 50 to 100 cases per advocate, so it's not possible to do therapy with clients. So that's why we make some of the referrals that we do.
Thank you, Ariel. We're way over our time.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Excuse me, Kelly.
You can submit your statements if they're written.
Yeah, if you have a written statement, you're more than welcome to submit it to the clerk, and we'll keep it on record.
Good evening. My name is Ariel Jackson. I'm also a victim advocate at the Police Social Services, and I'm coming today to recognize that there's a crisis in our budgeting. My concern is that we need to take a closer look at the other areas that were more non-essential and less detrimental to the community in removing other than victim services. Our response to the least of these in what we do demonstrates who we are as a community. It's my understanding that Kelly's position was funded about 3 years ago out of a need in the community and a cry for many of you here on the council for a need for an African American advocate. 3 years later, I was asked to return here after leaving and coming back on a part-time basis, and then on a full-time basis, again, out of a need for African-American advocates to better have a staff that reflects the people that we serve.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate everybody working with the time that we have. I know it's tight. Robert. And then we have Madeline, then Dan Coyne, then Chris Kruger.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Robert Dalrymple. I'm a resident of the 7th Ward, and I'm concerned about the Evanston Lake House and Gardens budget, which requires over $6 million in donations over the next 5 years, including $250,000 from the city. Another $7 million in donations are required over the life of the lease. Will this fundraising compete with the $30 million you would like for the Robert Crown Community Center? The budget from the Lake House Group is aspirational only and is based on private events. I will skip the rest of that paragraph.
Thank you, Robert.
What happens at the Lake House, what if it doesn't meet its full renovation goals or its annual revenue budget? Will the city start making up the deficits, or does the Lake House open more businesses in the house or hold more private events?
Thank you.
Is
Thank
the
you,
building
Robert.
maintenance ignored? Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. All right. Madeline. Okay. And then we've got Dan Coyne, Chris Kruger, and Birch.
I'm Madeline Gellis, an Evanston resident and former board member of Landmarks Illinois, and I'm here tonight representing Landmarks Illinois. As we stated last April, we are thankful that in 2016, the Evanston City Council set forth a mandate that Harley Clark, both a designated Evanston landmark and National Register listed landmark, be reused. The RFP that was released by the city for reuse, while only receiving one response, received a good qualified response. Landmarks Illinois consulted with the Evanston Lake House Group on their submittal, and we believe this committed organization has the will, the partners, and connections to move this effort forward.
Thank you.
Once
Thank you,
given the
Madeline.
city's approval.
Thank you. Dan Coyne, Chris Kruger.
Thank you.
Birch Berghardt, and then Sue Lallenbach.
Dan Coyne, 9th Ward, and I'm proud to say I raised my children at a very unique after-school program at Tommy Nevins. They worked out pretty good, but Tommy Nevins is going and Albion's coming in, and I just wanted to say this, that I support the Albion project. I'm willing to talk to anybody in my community, in Evanston and beyond, about that. I believe that 15 stories and 15 new affordable housing is fantastic. I think having hundreds of new people spending their money in downtown Evanston is fantastic, and I just wanted to say I support this, and I'm very open to talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, Chris, then Birch Berghardt, Sue Lallenbach, and Carl Klein.
Chris Kruger. So how do people with a lot of money displace people who are at the median income and below? They find a city council that's desperate for a quick buck, and they build units, and the rents go up in the center, and then they radiate outward. Those high rents, they radiate outward, and they push out all the people who are hanging on in a more marginal part of Evanston. Now, the most idiotic thing I've heard in this whole debate has been, we need more high rises so we can have affordable housing. So this is supply side lunacy. What it is roughly the numbers, 270 high-end units, 15 affordable units. Do that 10 times. What do you have? You have Monte Carlo. You have Aspen, Colorado. You have the Gold Coast. You don't have a mixed income and mixed ethnic community.
Thank you, Chris.
And although income is not synonymous with race, it's correlated. It's correlated. This is against people of color. This is against single mothers. Will irreparably alter the character of this city.
Thank you.
It's on your shoulders.
Thank you. All right. Birch Berghardt, Sue Lallenbach, Carl Klein, Nancy Klein.
Hi. I am board president of Interfaith Action of Evanston. We support the hungry and the homeless. And also, we, along with Joining Forces, our close colleagues, are strong supporters of affordable housing. We have learned through the Albion project the complexity of a process that is run by a statute that is not exactly working very well, and we did learn the shortcomings of the inclusionary housing ordinance. I am grateful and pleased that you all are considering revising that, and that.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Sue Lallenbach, Carl Klein, Nancy Klein, Thomas Klein.
Okay, just a quick comment. I wish you would get a longer microphone because I'm too tall. But I'm Sue Lolbach. I work at Connections for the Homeless and Joining Forces for Affordable Housing. I second Birch's comments. And I would like to say Albion's first proposal exceeded the requirements for the inclusionary housing ordinance. We believe that the current proposal meets those requirements based on Section 5710 of the City Code and all the discussions that they've had with staff. It is not the equivalent alternative that we had hoped for, but it's certainly better than the buyout, and it is within code. Therefore, we believe that it is not a reason to vote Albion down, and we ask you to make your decision based on other factors. In addition, I would just like to add that for all other developments coming up, we hope that they don't get past the DAPR process without informing the developers that we really are looking for on-site units.
Thank you,
okay?
Steph.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Carl Klein, Nancy Klein, Thomas Klein, then David Letschwitz.
Can tell tonight it's a family affair. On May 9th, all 9 of you were sworn in the 80th City Council. As is part of the tradition here in Evanston, you recited the Athenian Oath of Citizenship. The end of the oath should not be forgotten. It states that you all will transmit the city not only not less but greater and more beautiful than it was transmitted to us. The public benefits Albion is proposing are not significant enough to warrant City Council to allow major variances, one of which is 300% more than the zoning allows. Also, let's not accept crumbs from Albion like 6 units at 80% AMI. This does not meet the 50 to 60% AMI as stipulated by Evanston's inclusionary housing ordinance. We cannot let developers dictate what the character of our community should be. On another note, I truly believe historic preservation could be a powerful economic engine which has cultural, educational, environmental, and social benefits. Please support Evanston Lake House and Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. All right, Nancy Klein.
I'm Nancy Klein with a degree in environmental design from Syracuse
Nancy, you want to move
University.
that mic just a little down for you?
I am Nancy Klein with a degree in environmental design from Syracuse University. I would like to remind each of you that you have the power to do justice tonight. Aside from the obvious inappropriate design, which is totally out of context for the site, there are numerous design deficiencies with the Albion proposal. This is an irresponsible proposal with many problems that would create traffic, trash, parking congestion on a dark wind tunnel street, one with blinding glare, to name a few. The public benefits, if any, are extremely weak at best. The proposed affordable housing does not meet the requirements and does not solve the problem, particularly given the size and price of the units, which would not meet the needs of families.
Thank
Your
you,
vote
Nancy.
will determine whether we abide by our zoning laws and our affordable and fair housing laws or obliterate them. Your vote will set the precedent. As you know, ignorance of the law is no excuse. The law in regards to the issues had been presented by citizens, attorneys. 3 of you are lawyers, and you all have access to 5 city staff lawyers.
Thank you, Nancy. We got Thomas.
I'm on behalf of the majority who have signed the petition, thousands, be mindful of the law. The law is our friend and has been created to protect us. I urge you to please protect us and represent the will of the people who have elected you to represent us. Otherwise, we may have to find other ways that the law can protect us.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, Thomas Klein. Then we have David Letschwitz, then Meg Welsh, then Tricia Conley.
Members of city government, thank you, city manager, for providing a white paper on affordable housing. I regret that the first 15 pages of that proposal were not discussed beforehand. I encourage every council member to read the 15 pages and refer to them in moving ahead on affordable housing. As you move ahead on affordable housing, I also ask you to look at affordable housing and public-private partnerships published in 2009, the same time as the Evanston Downtown Plan of 2009. I also ask that you start to enforce Titles 5 through 7 in the city code by referring to the law of zoning and land use controls by Barlow Burke, also published in 2009.
Thank you, Thomas.
Nationwide, there was a problem in code enforcement that was brought out by municipal building and zoning code enforcement best practices, edited by Craig D. Tyndall. And thank you to the Corporation Council for photocopying the cover. I believe he's going to review it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, David Letchwitz, Meg Welsh, Tricia Conley, then David, I can't really read the last name. It's not Kaplan, but Cap something.
Mayor and council members, I'm David Leitchia. I'm a 10-year resident of the 7th Ward. I'm here to speak against the proposal tonight on the Evanston Lake House and Gardens. It's very well intentioned, but I think it's got a lot of shortcomings in the plans and how it's going to get to where they say what they want to be. From a risk management perspective, which is my area of expertise, I looked at the budget. I see $5,000 budgeted for insurance. Builder's risk insurance for large projects is $25,000 annually. If there's asbestos, which is a near certainty, that's another $25,000 annually while the project's going on. Ongoing property insurance coverage is going to be about $20,000 to $25,000. General liability coverage is going to be very pricey because the events involve alcohol, so there's going to have to be liquor liability coverage added to it. Again, a multiple of what's been budgeted.
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We got Meg Wells, Tricia Conley, David Cap something, I'm sorry, and David Hodgman.
The Albion development is the Twinkie of affordable housing and the Twinkie of filling a budget gap. It is going to not make you feel good after you vote for it, and we're going to remember. We're going to remember that some of you wanted a liberal cover to make it look like that you are for affordable housing, because it is not affordable housing as it is defined by our inclusionary housing ordinance. However, I have a feeling that my comments are probably a waste of time, because it's becoming more and more apparent that this was a done deal months ago, and it's become apparent in emails that we've read between developers and city staff, city employees.
Thank you, Meg. Tricia Conley, David Hodgman, then Peter McNamara.
So once again, I'm here to speak about the Albion, and I'd love if you guys would just have backbone and say, not this time. My questions are the following, and I think if none of us in this room totally agree at what side we're on, I think we can all pretty much agree that this is just up for grabs. There is no guiding document that we're willing to look at. There is no following of inclusionary housing document we're following. The 2009 plan doesn't seem to matter. So if you're really looking for citizens to engage, do you think this is the way to go? This could be an opportunity for some self-reflection. I am a teacher in Evanston, and I'm leaving you with this. 1 bedroom at 50% AMI and 2 bedrooms, one of them available at 50% AMI, does not help our families here in Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, David
Campbell.
I know,
sorry. Bad handwriting. So I'm David Campbell. I live in the 7th Ward. I'm a 42-year resident of Evanston, a member of the Parks and Recs Board, and I was on the Harley Clark Planning Committee. I am here to urge you today to support the Lakefront Gardens proposal and to support the process you put in place. I was at every single one of these meetings. I look at business plans every day for my business that I do. This is well thought out, well articulated. It is, I think, going to be successful, and it is very low risk to the city of Evanston. If it doesn't work, you guys can always tear it down, like the other supporters here, who, by the way, I've only noticed 2 that were in all of the meetings. Everybody else who is against this seemed to miraculously show up today. So I'm wondering where they were during the process.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Please support the will of the Parks and Recs.
All right. Thank you, David. David Hodgman, Peter McNamara, then Jennifer Shader.
My name is Dave Hodgman. I'm past president of the Evanston Parks and Recreation Board. I organized the Evanston Parks Foundation, where I am still president. One of the successful projects of that foundation was the Noah's Playground project. By profession, I am an estate planning attorney with a law firm downtown, and I work with families that literally give away tens of millions of dollars every year. I understand the philanthropic perspective. The philanthropic resources of this community are deep and wide. I've heard some concerns expressed about competition with other Evanston projects, particularly Robert Crown. My wife and I have made what is for us a very significant pledge to Robert Crown. It should be obvious that the interests of people giving money to the lake house are very different from those who would give money to Robert Crown. Robert Crown is a place for athletics, recreation. The lake house is a place for historic preservation, conservation, and the Great Lakes.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, Peter McNamara, Jennifer Shader, Greg Sultan, and then Nicole Kustok.
Good evening. My name is Pete McNamara. I'm the treasurer for the Evanston Lake House and Gardens Group. Just want to comment. The plan we propose is financially viable and is staged to minimize risk to the city and to our organization. The plan will not raise anyone's taxes or fees, and the fundraising numbers thrown out by the opponents are exaggerated and not a part of the plan that we propose. Private events are a small part of our operations, which focus on environmental and cultural education. In addition, the city has already voted against demolition of the site in September of 2016. We propose to preserve the dunes, which are a part of our plan for education for everyone in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, and for all of you following out there and following at home, we've finished 2 pages. We're on page 3 of 5 pages. All right, Jennifer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Shader. I live at 823 Clinton Place in the 7th Ward in the home that my family has owned for 46 years. I'm a 46-year resident of Evanston, and I live less than 2 blocks from the Evanston Lake House, from the Harley Clark Mansion. I'd like to voice my strong opposition to the Albion, and I want to voice my strong recommendation to accept the response to the RFP given by Evanston Lake House and Gardens. I won't go on with everything that everybody said, but I do have a very big concern about that. In addition to all of the other arguments, we're set to have an empty room crisis of 2,000 plus rooms for rent next fall due to Northwestern's new sophomore residency requirement. We haven't, that I know of, accounted for how that will affect rent pricing for the small landlord, for our Evanstonians, for people who rely on that to pay their mortgages. Bigger developments can offer incentives such as 2 months free. The Evanstonians that own the smaller individual units rely on that rental income to sustain their families and their mortgages.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay. Greg Sultan, Nicole Kustok, Mark Sloan, although Mark, I think you already spoke. Greg.
Good evening. I'm Greg Sultan. I'm a longtime Evanston resident. In 1954, I entered nursery school in Evanston, graduated THS in '69, and have lived in my current residence in the First Ward for a little over 30 years. I support the Albion project. I've heard various people talk about the financial benefits or lack thereof in low-income housing, and yes, that's true, but no developer is coming and offering to build that in this space. Evanston needs revenue. Several people have mentioned the budget problems. If they build this place, it'll be 10 times the revenue as soon as it starts renting than you're getting now from a vacant lot?
Thank you, Greg. Okay. Nicole, then I don't think we have Mark Sloan, but the next after him would be Steve Cohen and then John Foley.
I'm Nicole Kustok. I believe in the Lighthouse Dunes and the proposal to naturalize Harley Clark. My concern is with the financials provided in the composing plan. IDNR bid the program out or the building out for a $5.5 million bid. The competitive plan plans to spend $3 million for the mansion. I believe it's low. Using their own comps that they've provided, they end up running between $500 and $1,000 a square foot for a mansion of this age. They propose to spend $149 a square foot. It's low. That's the bad news. The good news is we've had 175 people sign our petition in 3 days. All we are asking, we propose that we can do our entire naturalization for $200,000, that people have reached out to us and offered money to pledge.
Thank you, Nicole.
Please vote no. I don't think we can give an asset that belongs to all of us, to everybody in this room, to a group with $4,800 in the bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Steve Cohen. I don't see anybody lined up here. Okay, Steve's coming from the back. Then we've got John Foley. Then Ed Corellia. Apologize if I mispronounced that. And then Rohit Sahaspal. Really? No worries, Steve. We need a little break.
Okay, I know I've got just a short time. I oppose the Albion development, and I want to focus on the issue of inconvenience to downtown residents while this and so many others are being built. I have seen, where is the crane going to go? I've seen them. I had a bird's eye view at 1571 Maple. They moved the crane, took away our street for 10 months. I don't believe that the plans that say that so few of the nearby businesses are going to be affected. I think they're going to be affected much more than you know now or are willing to admit. I mean, it's not easy to build these buildings. Downtown in the Loop, they take great care to keep pedestrian access open. I don't see, they take great care to have parking maintained when they build these things, which they do all the time, and I don't see that kind of process in Evanston buildings.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, John Foley, then Ed Corelli, then Rohit. Let's have people line up as I call them. So I'm going to keep going 4, and so folks can line up so we can just quickly keep moving through page 3. Okay, so do we have John Foley? If we don't have John, let's go to Ed. Come on up.
Thank you and good evening. Ed Corella speaking on behalf of Pete Miller's Steakhouse. I fully support this development of the Albion project. I feel that I'm an open-minded person. I've heard a lot of public comment over the months. I can't see how this would not be positive for the town of Evanston. The positives clearly outweigh the negatives regarding this project. To be honest, Albion has made a great effort to mentor development and listen to the residents. I believe this is what Evanston needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Rohit? And then we've got, it looks like Greg Williams or Williamson, then Andrew Fisher, then Mary Brzezinski.
Hi, Alderman, Mayor. My name is Rohit Sahajpal. I am the owner of Tommy Nevins Evanston. Just wanted to say a couple quick things. We put Tommy Nevins up for sale in early 2016 due to decreasing revenues year over year. At this point, due to low volume of customers on this particular stretch of Sherman, we're going to be closing our restaurant, and we're probably looking at November 22nd to do that. With that, knowing that there's an environmental issue on the site, we're kind of stuck in terms of what our options are. And so my fear is that the land will be vacant for quite a bit of time.
Thank you, Rohit.
And so I believe that supporting the Albion development will be beneficial to all parties. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Greg, and then Andrew Fisher, Mary Brzezinski, and then Junad Rizki.
Regarding the rejection of Albion, let's state the facts. This site is a D4 transitional district. It's intended to encourage a mix of office, residential, and retail uses. The D4 code allows only 93 dwelling units. It does not permit 278 dwelling units. The code does not permit a 15-story massive wall directly on Sherman Avenue. The code requires a 15-story wall to have a 40-foot setback. Finding these limitations to be inconvenient, the Albion developer has simply dismissed them. As I've demonstrated, it's quite possible and plausible to comply with the Evanston zoning district code. We stood here way too many times to protest this willful dismissal of our code. Woman Rennell said this is an agonizing process. It is, but it really does not have to be. This council has a lot of work to do. It really needs to depend on the tools that you have on hand. You have an excellent tool at hand. It's called the Evanston Zoning Code. It's well developed by professionals. It's intelligent, has good things built into it.
Thank you, Greg.
You should just follow the code and send a message to developers.
Thank you. Andrew?
Hi, I'm Andrew Fisher. I'm a 50-year resident of Evanston. Moved here in '67. I'm a current resident of Optima Towers with the orange balcony rails. One point that hardly anyone against the Albion project has brought up is we're currently at a great expansion of the median street on between Sherman and Orrington, right in front of my building. And this Albion building would bring in a lot more traffic. And currently going south on Sherman and west to turn onto Davis, there's only one lane, which would greatly, and all this additional traffic from Albion would be greatly more jammed up in that area. Also, I read in the current November issue of National Geographic, the happiest places, one of the happiest cities, Boulder, was considering 14-floor buildings, but they passed a ballot thing limiting it to just 5-floor buildings, and it turned out a lot better. They avoided crisscrossed, traffic jammed streets.
Thank you, Andrew.
Anyway.
Okay, thank you. Can you bring that up here? Sure. Thank you. All right, Mary.
Hi, Mary Rosinski. I'm here, one, to speak against the Albion project, not against development. Project, it doesn't feel like it is built or designed to support a business district. And if we want sales tax, I think we have to build and design and tweak a project so that we have a really good business district that people from outside of Evanston can come to also. So we've got parking issues, we have size and scale. The second thing is it also flies in the face of our intent of our inclusionary housing. Either we believe in it and we're going to follow it and we're going to tell other people we do it, or we don't, we throw it in the garbage can. The other thing is the Lake House project has been a project in work for 4 years now, and I was there for No Park Sale when we started No Park Sale in the Evanston Parks and Lakefront Alliance, which included Cessna, No Park Sale, Central Street, and thousands of neighbors. This project has developed like so many other great things in Evanston, and it has come from the grassroots, and it will be strong, and it will work, and I think it's really time for the council to trust your residents. Believe in them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got Janad Rizki. Then we've got, I don't know if it's someone from AFSCME, it just says AFSCME here. Then Tammy Andrew.
Janad Risky. Stop wasting everyone's time and approve the Lake House Group's plan and move forward. The city budget crisis is a lot of nonsense in a way. Tonight, close to $1 million is going to be spent for Mr. Bobkowitz's lawsuit. On Howard Street, we're going to spend more money on Howard Street next year than on our public parks. That's for a theater and some infrastructure, and there's no money there. Even the city staff member who presented it was disgusted. There's a mess here. I believe taxes are going up 100% over the next several years, and nobody should blame Harley Clark. It's this council, the misuse of money that's going on here. After tonight, I am going to seek with some other residents and form a group to start investigating the budget. Anyone in the rooms who's interested in joining me, we should do it. It's not going to end when you approve the budget. We're going to go through it and look at everything.
Thank you, Janad. All right. AFSCME, okay. Then we've got Tammy Andrew, and then we're going to move on to page 4. Will be Darlene Cannon and then Missy Esther.
The new temporary agreement was ratified by members of AFSCME Local 1891 on October 17th, as well as approved by the Council October 23rd. The wording that was agreed upon and ratified says, on a one-time basis, in light of the city's economic downturn, employees agreed to take one unpaid day on November 10, 2017. This is the wording that management drafted, and after trying to caution them of the potential problems for city services and scheduling conflicts, that we were told it was non-negotiable, so we agreed to it. Once managers realized what we had already forewarned them would happen, not everyone is scheduled to work on November 10th, and some employees have to work to provide essential services. They dreamed up the wording somehow implies those employees have to take a different unpaid day. Management then proceeded to change the wording, the council and the employee, and add the employees who must work are not scheduled to work on November 10, 2017 will arrange with their departments to take another unpaid day before December 31st, 2017. We feel the union has been more than fair, but we will not change our agreed upon and ratified language. Since management's actions constitute a gross violation of the contract, we will be filing an unfair labor practice with the Illinois Board of Labor and have started the process for arbitration.
Thank you. All right, Tammy.
Good evening. I'm here to speak to you and ask you to vote yes for Albion. This is a very challenging site, as you're well aware, and no development is perfect. So I feel very confident that you can certainly work out your differences with them. But they've listened to what you've asked for, and they've done their very best to bring a social component to this as well as a financial component to the city. So please vote yes for the Albion project.
Thank you. Darlene Cannon, Missy, or I think it's Missy, Esther, then Ray Friedman. Miss Esther, excuse me. Betty? All right. So do we have Darlene Cannon? Is she coming? All right. Again, I'll ask if folks can line up. I'll quickly go through the order. Darlene Cannon, Miss Esther, Ray Friedman, Laura Paz.
Good evening. I'm coming tonight to speak in opposition to the Albion building. It's not meeting the exclusionary zoning ordinance that you put forth. This will be the 10th luxury apartment building that is furthering the gentrification trend in Evanston, which will in turn make Evanston even more unaffordable. Let's see, the building has 273 luxury apartments. Please hold the developers to the inclusionary housing ordinance. And insist that 10% or 50% to the 60 of the AMI on the site, on-site units. This is the city's prerogative. The city needs to stand by the ordinance. This decision has important long-term consequences with far-reaching impact on Evanston residents.
Thank you, darling. All right, Miss Esther, Ray Friedman, Laura Paz, then Pankaj Sharma. Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing things.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Betty Esther, and a resident of the 5th Ward with other residents here from the 5th Ward. We are speaking against the Albion project, and I am personally speaking in favor of the Lake Clark project. I put my money where my mouth, so I gave them some of my little money. But also I'm here as a representative of the Citizen Network of Protection to invite you to our second in a series of workshops we are having in the community with residents on the Civilian Police Oversight Committee. There are things that has happened here in the community that with the police department that needs to be addressed, and we think this proposal has shown, and other organization that we have shared this around the country says this is what the community policing should be about.
Thank you, Ms. Esther. Thank you. All right. Next up, maybe I'm out of order. Next up, I've got Ray Friedman.
You said Laura Paz.
Yeah, all right. I'll do you, Laura, and then we'll do Ray, and then we're back in our order.
Okay. I moved to Evanston, like so many others here, because of its progressive character, because it is a multicultural, multiracial, and multi-class town, a town that has historically stood for justice, equity, and diversity. If you vote for the Albion project, you are voting against equality of races. You're voting anti-black. You're voting anti-Latino. We've lost a great number of the black community in Evanston. Latino homeowners, potential homeowners, can't afford it, so they go to North Chicago or Round Lake because we've lost our affordable housing programs. 40% have been cut back. You know, you all talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk, okay? And you must vote no against this project. Why don't you fight for Northwestern University to pay taxes? Then you won't have to be gentrifying Evanston and kicking out poor people and kicking out minorities.
Thank you, Laura.
Get on a movement. 15 years ago, a woman named Mimi brought a movement for Northwestern. That's where the problem is. Poor people didn't cause the high taxes. It's Northwestern. Have some courage and do that.
Thank you. All right. Ray Friedman, you're up next. You don't have to be as fiery, but you can.
Well, no, I toned it down for this evening. Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, City Council. I was looking for a broader sense of how I can express my thoughts for tonight. So I narrowed it down to 2 words: purpose and intent. As we read through the guidelines for all of Evanston codes, ordinances, and governing bodies, these are the 2 items that are most frequently repeated: purpose and intent. Are we following the purpose and intent as outlined for the DAPR committee or the zoning codes as they are written? Why then are we coming before the city council to vote on a project that does not meet these Evanston guidelines? We need to think about the purpose and intent of these projects and how it will affect the residents and businesses here. It is very clear that builders are anxious to build here in Evanston. Shouldn't we make sure that these projects will meet the needs and expectations of everyone concerned and that all city codes and ordinances are followed in order to ensure the purpose and intent is followed as you intended it to? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. Pankaj or Pankaj, you pronounce your name. All right. And then we've got Kay Sujata, then John Moore, then Claire Kelly.
Good evening. My name is Pankaj Sharma. I moved my family here because I wanted to live in a progressive, diverse, and affordable community. The Albion project is a direct threat to those beliefs. Your constituents do not want to live in a gentrified, expensive, and increasingly segregated community. This project only pays lip service to the idea of affordable housing. It only creates a handful of token affordable housing units. The Albion project must be stopped if we want to keep Evanston as a community that is affordable and inclusive. This project will continue to drive up the already inflated rental market. At the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, are we the community that we project ourselves to be? What do we value? Will we stand up against insincere development that is against the beliefs of our community? Please vote no.
Thank you. All right. Looks like the next one I've got is K. It just says K period Sujata. Okay.
Yeah, she can't be here this evening. She asked me to read on her behalf.
Statement? Okay, Claire.
Kay Sujata. Good evening. My name is Kay Sujata, and I am a long-time resident of Evanston. I am voicing my strong opposition to the proposed Albion housing development. When I first arrived in the U.S. more than 3 decades ago, Evanston was my first home. As a graduate student at Northwestern, I relied greatly on affordable housing within walking distance from the university since I could not afford a car or even spend additional stipend income on public transportation. For the past 2 decades, I have worked in the areas of family, economic security, ending violence against women, and supportive housing. I have seen firsthand the impact of rising inequality and its cost on families and communities. I have also seen the tremendous impact that safe and affordable housing can have on family health and economic security and the growth of communities. A vibrant town can only thrive with a diverse and inclusive community. The Albion housing development proposal does not provide sufficient affordable housing and does not follow Evanston's inclusionary housing ordinance.
Thank you, Kay.
I'm almost done. A large-scale housing development such as the one proposed will rapidly price out working families away not only from downtown Evanston, but from the town itself in the long run. I strongly urge the committee to vote against the proposed Albion development and consider an alternative development that is inclusive of community and economic development, as well as keeping within the architectural aesthetic of the area. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. John?
Thank you. I just parenthetically note, I see that the Park Evanston's worried about losing out its market share to E2 and the others, so it's going to start renovating and raising its rents, so we're just seeing this accelerated gentrification occurring now. As a lawyer, I just wanted to ask you to look closely at the public benefits for this project. Many of them that are claimed are not actually public benefits under our law. One-time payments, like a divvy station, are not enough. The costs of the project far outweigh these public benefits. Don't let Nevin scare you on the leaking tank. I'm an environmental attorney. I can tell you this is a routine small cost for any purchaser of the property. And finally, my haiku that I just wrote a second ago: green light to canyons, a divvy is not enough, kiss our code goodbye. Thank you.
So I'm so glad somebody brought a haiku to the public comments tonight. Thank you, John. All right, Claire, now we've got you, Claire, right? You ready? Or do you want a break? I can give you a little break. I'll give you a little break. All right, we've got Leslie Peterson, Kira Kelly, then Bobby Burns.
Bobby's not here.
All right, here comes Kira. Okay, we don't have Leslie Peterson. Okay, and then we've got Amina DeMarco after that.
Oh, man.
save the trees in the future, you can send one copy to the clerk's office and we'll send the rest out.
I want to make sure they see it.
All right, 30 seconds, Kira.
Okay, don't start me yet.
I won't. I'll give you a second.
This petition represents 2,215 people last we checked. And if you don't think that sounds like a big number, just think about how many people elected you. For some of you, 500 plus. The most, I think, 1,200 to 1,800. How hard was it to get those votes? Thousands of people mobilized, hundreds of people sent emails out, and we have proof of that. Countless hours and sacrifices by a lot of people. And if the efforts and outcry of thousands of residents falls on deaf ears, and longtime independent business owners who are opposed to this, which most are, and we had a video, unfortunately we couldn't show, some of them will leave, we citizens wonder what it does take to be represented in Evanston, and who is represented in Evanston.
Thank you, Claire. Excuse me, Kira.
Please hear us. Choose us. Choose the people of Evanston and not the developers again.
All right. Are you Leslie?
Hi, I'm here again to request that you vote no on the Albion project.
Just so I can follow them out. Who are you?
I'm Leslie.
Oh, you're Leslie. Okay, good. Thank you for being here. Okay.
I'm here again to request that you vote no on the Albion project. Again, I'm curious to know why it is this, the City Council is helping to guarantee a return for developers that have nothing to do with our cities by making sure that they don't have to follow the 10% guidelines. I fail to see why it is we want them to be able to lock in 17% IRRs or 6% cap rates. I just don't understand it. And then if you look at all the development that people are interested in doing here in Evanston, 6 to 7 projects, I'm curious to know why this one seems to be so very sacred. There are some that have already proposed the 10% guidelines. Shouldn't we be driving the process and making sure that we have folks that want to work with us? Because, you know, once you've let the 10% genie out of the bottle, I'm sure from here on out, we're going to hear from every single developer asking for that same sort of waiver. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay. Claire, are you ready? All right, let's go with Claire, and then we'll go to you, Amina.
This has been exhausting. I feel like we're doing a lot of the work that you guys should all be doing, frankly. So anyway, please don't give away the farm. Who are we trying to please here? With the planned development, you guys call the shots. You're our representatives, not the developers. We have an inclusionary housing ordinance in place to serve Evanston's low-income residents. This ordinance requires 10% affordable housing for residents at the 50% to 60% AMI for a transport-oriented development. We're getting neither of these from the Albion development. They're asking for about half of those at 80%, and they're only giving us a fraction. They're giving us 9 units that meet this. That's less than a third of our inclusionary housing ordinance requirement. Makes you scratch your head. Why are we doing this?
Thank you, Claire.
I'm almost done. We need to hold the developers to their word of the ordinance. Make sure that this benefits, that the benefits truly and honestly outweigh the harms of this massive development. And we do question. We've seen the FOIAs. We've seen the emails. It does feel that the tracks have been greased by city staff, by Wally Bobkowitz, who we're now paying $500,000 for.
Thank you, Claire.
I just ask you all to consider this. I'm sorry, but I ask you to consider the leadership in this when you vote on the Albion. Who's been leading this? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We got Amina DeMarco, Irv Charcoal, and then Chris Pappas.
I'm speaking in support of the Lighthouse Dunes proposal for the renaturalization of the Harley Clark property. This is the only proposal that truly returns the property to the public. It's low impact to the community and low cost to the city. Some of you may know, and we worked together on the Lakefront Master Plan as a former Park Board member for 10 years. I also served with some of you on the Harley Clark Special Committee. So I feel like I am uniquely qualified to speak on this subject. I am not in favor of the other plan for the Lake House proposal. And finally, the Harley Clark Mansion, in my opinion, is a beacon of privilege. And the time has come to take it down and return the land to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina. Let's please be respectful of everybody's opinion up here. All right, Irv. Then we got Chris Pappas, then Lisa Deacon.
I'm Irv Chokel. I've been a resident in Evanston for over 40 years. The only positive comments I've heard from City Council about the Albion project are the benefits. Do we need to have all those benefits from one development? Especially considering there's so many projects in the pipeline. Why put all of our eggs in one basket? They should redesign that. We can get along with fewer benefits and fewer extreme variances from zoning.
Thank you, Irv. All right, we've got Chris, and then Lisa Decken, and then Richard Lynn.
Good evening, and thank you for listening. My name is Chris Pappas, and I'm the owner of Igia Spa. I'm here to express my concerns with Albion and to ask the question, who are we as Evanstonians? A plan was drafted in 2009, which has served as a guideline for city projects since its preparation. The proposed building violates so many of those guidelines. As you're more than aware, there are several other major building projects lined up for approval. And what those developers are learning is that Evanston's plans are not set in stone. Approving the Albion project will communicate this to the entire world. Who are we as Evanstonians, and what do we stand for? Can we retain the words quaint, unique, and special in terms of how we describe Evanston?
Thank you, Chris.
That decision's in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Lisa Deacon. I'm a 4th Ward resident and a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. In regards to the Albion development, I support the project. The site is a difficult one, as you all know, for many reasons, and the development is not perfect. However, rarely in life do you get perfect. However, I support development downtown that is served by public transit, encourages alternative modes of transportation, is appropriate in scale to the built environment, provides for an active street-level use, retains existing businesses, makes use of a site that has a known level of environmental contamination that must be remediated, and includes affordable housing on site, all of which are included in this project. I thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you. All right, for those of you, again, following, we have just completed page 4. We are on the final page of public comment right now. Richard Lynn, Janet Kirby, Alex Block, then Tina Payden.
Hello, my name is Richard Lynn. Members of the City Council, it is clear Albion is working hard and wants to be in Evanston. You should embrace their commitment to your community and the long-term benefits of the project offers. I strongly encourage you to approve the Albion project and ask you to vote yes. Albion has the confidence to invest $90 million in Evanston that will generate significant revenue for many generations, and it will be a catalyst for other people to invest in the area. They are working with Evanston Township High School with meaningful work-study opportunities for the students. This service is invaluable. By working with the next generation of Evanston leaders today, it will ensure quality standard of life for generations to come. You must vote yes for the Albion project. Your yes vote will impact Evanston for generations to come, impact the next leaders being groomed, and provide housing for the people forever.
Thank you. All right. Janet Kirby, then Alex Block, Tina Payden, and Fred Meyer.
Hi, Janet Kirby, 1st Ward. I'm here to read a letter from Seth Weinberger. He says, I'm a former chairman of the Evanston Zoning Board of Appeals, and this is the first time since my retirement from the Zoning Board that I have felt compelled to publicly oppose any proposal for construction in Evanston. I vehemently oppose the proposal for a 287-unit rental building on Sherman Avenue. The proposed building site is in a D4 transition district with zoning requirements specifically geared towards creating a transition between the heightened mass of core downtown and the residential areas around it. The proposed building is the antithesis of a transition. It continues the mass of the Rotary building into the D4 district. The combination of the variances would enable the developer to build a structure that is about double the volume of what could be built on this property if the requirements were complied with.
Thank you,
that is not a variation, that is an obliteration of the zoning code. The proposed building also violates the expressed intent to create pedestrian-friendly walkways along our most important pedestrian streets. Instead, over half of the building's frontage on Sherman Avenue Avenue would not be set back as required to preserve a pedestrian-friendly streetscape.
Thank you, Janet. We're way over the time.
3 sentences. I urge you to vote against this proposal. I thank you for your service, but I also want to remind you, this is him saying this, about your responsibility. You volunteered to protect the city from overdevelopment. If you approve this building and it gets built, it will become a monument to your failure to protect our city, a very massive monument that you and many generations after you will regularly revisit.
Thank you. All right. Alex? Again, I ask everybody to please be respectful of all the speakers and keep this to 30 seconds.
Tonight, if this city council were to embrace corporate interests in the case of Albion over community organizers in the case of Evanston and Lake House and Gardens, it would represent an absolute rejection of everything that this city is about. You know, years ago, I stood in front of you and asked how long and for how loud must the people of Evanston speak before their voices are heard? In both of these instances, you have seen community members from across the entire city rally together in support of something that this community wants. It is time for you to say yes to them, to embrace Evanston Lake House and Gardens, and to reject the Albion proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Tina, Fred Meyer, Tom, and Jeanette.
Good evening, everyone. Tina Payton. Albion versus Payton Properties. As you can see from the handout, Albion is offering 8 studios, 4 one-bedrooms, 3 two-bedrooms. The maximum occupancy for those apartments for 15 units will be 24 people. There only a comment made by one of the aldermen says single mothers with children need housing. You could only fit 3 of those units for affordable units. Payton Properties, which is our units, currently we have 2 one-bedroom, 9 two-bedroom, 2 three-bedroom, and 2 four-bedroom. We have the same amount, 15 units, as Albion proposed, and we house 53 people. Albion is not going to house anyone with their units. Say no.
Thank you, Tina. All right. We have Fred. We have Fred Meyer. I've got here Fred Meyer, Ann Jeanette, Chris Kruger. Some of these people have already spoken. Thomas Klein, already spoken. All right, so I'm going to say no, Kruger. We got Thomas Wesley. Okay, we're cruising through here. Priscilla Giles. Ann Jeanette. Ann Jeanette, come on up here. Come on up here. Okay. Are you Fred? No. Oh, okay. Oh, Thomas, okay.
I am ancient, as some of you know, and I've been coming in front of the City Council for more years than I like to think about. But I'm here tonight to speak for, of all crazy things, beauty, the beauty of Evanston. You know, it's music, architecture, art, nature that makes men's spirits soar. And when I ran the Youth Job Center, which I did for a number of years, we used to take kids, clients who were interested in art, over to look at the Harley Clark mansion, the arts programs there. And many of these kids had never been east along the lakefront. And they were blown away by the wonders of it and said, boy, you know, I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to live over here. But it was very uplifting. The beauty of that spot is remarkable, both the house and, of course, the land. So I'm hoping that that project will get the upward vote tonight. Then I want to speak quickly about the Albion, which is the opposite of beauty, in my opinion. It looks like a spaceship landed on top of a little base, and it's just too big for that spot. And I'm strongly against that, but very much for the Harley Clark beauty of Evanston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Priscilla. I'm sorry, and then we'll do you, Thomas. Sorry. Okay. Yep, come on up, Priscilla. We'll do you, and then I'll do Thomas.
My name is Priscilla Giles, and I am asking the council to vote no for the Albion project, a project which destroys the character of the city of Evanston and does not nearly do enough to answer the problem of housing and homelessness, for which you in the special announcements ask us to for the community to keep in mind. I believe the council has an obligation to solve the housing and homeless problem with not with the Albion. It does not do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Thomas?
Good evening, Council. I'm Tom Wesley. I'm here to speak in support of the Albion project. I've attended almost all of the public meetings on this project, and the developer has been responsive to the community's concerns, from on-site affordable housing to building height and design changes, and has made many other accommodations to the community. They have also provided what I believe an exciting and sympathetic building for this unusual site. In addition to the 300-plus new residents in our downtown corridor, they can only help the revitalization of our downtown neighborhood. Our new neighbors will use restaurants, retail, and services. The development will be a significant boost to our downtown economy. The additional property taxes, estimated to be $1 million, will help our city's budget and our schools. This development is a great use of underutilized urban space, great design, adds vitality to our downtown neighborhood, adds $1 million in annual revenue to our tax rolls. I believe we as a city should move forward into the 21st century with thoughtful and beautifully designed development that adds to the vitality of our great city. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, it looks like we got four more here. Megan Narara, Isabel Sterlin, Lindsay Weiss, and then Catherine Pappas. Again, my apologies if I'm mispronouncing names here. Okay, so we got Megan. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Megan Navarra. I'm a Fifth Ward resident, and I'm here tonight to request that the two victim advocates at the Evanston Police Department retain their full-time positions. I feel the city of Evanston is balancing the budget on the backs of its most vulnerable people, and this means that we are the most vulnerable people when any one of us at any given moment find ourselves a victim. When that moment happens, I personally want an educated, experienced, and compassionate human being there to help me. I do not want to be handed a stack of business cards and be told to reach out to a social service agency. I want one of these two women that spoke earlier working in conjunction with the Evanston Police Department helping me. We should retain our valued and experienced victim advocates, not make them reapply for jobs that undercut their pay and their skills.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Isabel? And after Isabel, we have Lindsay Weiss and then Catherine Pappas, and that's it.
Lindsay is not here. They couldn't show up, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Ready? Hi, my name is Isabel Sterla, and I am representing my sister and I from Colfax and Sherman, Lindsay Weiss from Ridge and Davis, and William Bermudez from the Fourth Ward, with their explicit permission. I will be brief. If we as a community are going to claim that we are so inclusive and diverse, but allow the Albion development to be built, which would make the city less affordable and accessible to the most vulnerable in our society, including people of low socioeconomic status and people of color, then we must think whether or not our actions support our ideas of what Evanston is. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. All right. You have the honor of being the very last public commenter.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Catherine Pappas. I'm speaking as behalf of a small merchant on Sherman Avenue. I'm a Northwestern alumnus, undergraduate and graduate school. I got married at the Orrington Hotel. I love Evanston, okay? And when I left corporate America, took my entire life savings and loans and went to the corner of Sherman and Grove to start something in Evanston because it's a progressive place. I'm not Albion, but I have 49 families who work for me, okay? And $10,000 that they're going to give me for parking is not going to make 1 month's payroll for my employees and all the other small merchants on that street. So please think about the merchants, because you can look at Sherman Avenue and all the emptiness that has been there for a long time with the big, big, big buildings. People love coming to small, quaint, beautiful places. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. All right. Okay, and thank you everybody for being here and for getting up and presenting your point of view and your perspective. There are a lot of different perspectives that were presented tonight, and I know the City Council may also share different perspectives. So let's go ahead and get this meeting underway. The first special order of business is SP1, which is response to request for proposal 1748 to lease the Harley Clark mansion. I would like to ask Alderman Revelle to present this special order of business and begin discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion to get us started with our conversation. I move that the City Council direct the City Manager to work with Evanston Lake House and Gardens to develop a letter of agreement detailing the terms of a 40-year lease of the Harley Clark property to Evanston Lake House and Gardens for the creation of an environmental education center. The agreement is to establish a 36-month fundraising schedule with annual interim fundraising targets, and with at least 50% of the funds raised by each interim fundraising deadline deposited in an account held by Evanston Lake House and Gardens. If the Lake House is unable to meet the fundraising schedule, the city may consider other options for the property. The lease is also to specify the conditions under which the rehab of the Harley Clark buildings can begin, the number and types of events and other uses permitted for the property, responsibility for insurance and for maintenance of the buildings and grounds, and such other issues as are deemed appropriate and necessary. The City Manager is to present the letter of agreement to the City Council for approval at its January 22nd meeting.
Second.
Okay, and then just a couple of brief comments. So to review just briefly the most recent chapter in the long discussion about the future of the Harley Clark property, in September last year, the City Council directed the Parks and Recreation Board and the Lighthouse Landing Committee to develop a plan for the future operation of the property. Several members of those two committees, and you've heard from a couple of them this evening, agreed to serve on the Harley Clark Planning Committee, which I chaired. We met regularly for 7 months, during which time we had extensive discussion with Lake House representatives and with community groups eager to partner with Lake House in developing experiential, educational, and community programming for Harley Clark. Ultimately, the Planning Committee enthusiastically endorsed the Lake House proposal and in June recommended that the City Council enter into a lease agreement with Lake House. And as you know, it was decided instead to engage in an RFP process to see whether any other nonprofits had an interest in leasing the property. Now this evening, we have before us the one responsive proposal to our RFP from Evanston Lake House and Gardens, a proposal to transform Harley Clark into an exciting, environmentally themed asset with broad appeal for the whole community. This is about much more than rehabbing a picturesque old mansion. This is about an opportunity to create a space for a rich and varied array of programming that takes advantage of this unique location with access to Lake Michigan, its beach, and its dunes. Let's give Evanston Lake House and Gardens an opportunity to realize this exciting vision for Evanston.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion that was seconded. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you, and thank you for that, Alderman Revelle, and also for all of the hard work you've put into the process. And I definitely agree. We've made a commitment to this process, and I feel like we really have to follow through with that. Give the group the opportunity. I do want to, I guess, express my gratitude for others who are continuing to think about and to visualize what can be part of this entire property. And I encourage everybody who does have these good ideas for things that are, maybe not necessarily having to do with the building, but to perhaps work with the group. To continue to communicate with us and continue to share those ideas, because you bringing those to the table are going to be very helpful and very useful in making this entire stretch. And the dunescape is remarkable. It's beautiful. There are a lot of lake features that weren't there naturally. The Northwesterns contributed a lot to what we've ended up with as far as a beautiful lakefront, and same thing with this property. So please continue with that engagement. It is very important. So just because, assuming we do pursue this actively, please stay engaged and involved in that process, because it is very important for the overall health of the lakefront. Thank you.
Seeing no lights, City Clerk. Excuse me, I got one that just popped up. Alderman Fleming.
So I will be very honest. I have mixed feelings about this. I would love to see this beautiful house and education and so on and so forth. But I have concerns about you all raising the money, and that might just be because it seems like a lot of money to raise from where you are now. I do want to trust the process we went through. However, I guess from my understanding, just to clarify, we went through a process. We have one offer, but I guess I didn't come in here feeling like because we went through the process, we are tying ourselves to the offer we had. So I want to clarify that for my own understanding. So I mean, it all sounds really great. I have a lot of concerns about not ending up where we are today. That, however many years down the line, we have this $1 lease, and it did not come to fruition. So I would like to make sure that those deadlines are in there. I maybe would be more aggressive with the deadlines, but I'm willing to be flexible. And I do also, and I brought this up to Tom and Alex when we met months and months ago about the insurance. It is a very old building. I would want to make sure that there is full coverage on the structure and surrounding, and we have all that worked out because, as you all know, we have a huge budget deficit. So the last thing we need is to have an uninsured building out there that the city realizes we're responsible for. So I would want to make sure that Alderman Ravel, you have that very clear, and that the city manager, that's clear in any agreement that might go forward, as well as maybe some more aggressive deadlines on reporting back on the fundraising so that we don't look up down the road and we're not quite where we want to be.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
In total agreement with Alderman Fleming. Would love to see the project go forward. Some clear concerns on fundraising. Can staff or city manager, someone give us an explanation on the process if you do not meet the terms of the agreement?
Members of the council, I think our challenge over the next several weeks will be to come up with those terms. I think Alderman Ravel in her motion gave us a broad outline. We'll meet with the Lake House Gardens folks to get a sense of what they think are appropriate benchmarks, and we'll come back to you with that. But I think certainly in Alderman Ravel's motion, I know Mayor Haggerty also has similar concerns. So that will be our charge over the next several weeks. And so we'll come back on January 22nd, and you'll have a chance to see and react to what we've come up with.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Fisk, and then Alderman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Alderman Ruth Simmons and Alderman Fleming and various other members of the council who've expressed some concern over the ability not only to raise funds, but how long that's going to take, and we need to have clearly identifiable benchmarks along the way. I think the programs that have been described are wonderful, and I don't think anybody can argue that these are inspiring activities, the wonderful partnerships, certainly broad enthusiasm, and I appreciate all of that. I think you all need to understand that we unfortunately have the responsibility of being the fiscal arbiters of where and how money is spent. I'm a little concerned in reading the proposal. I understand that Lake House is still asking for the $250,000. I'd like that to be from the city. I would like that. I'm sorry, Mr. City Manager, does that appear in our 2018 budgeting?
It does not.
Okay, so that would add to. We would have to add that in as a budget item. Is that correct?
If the council wished to include that, yes.
Okay. So that increases our deficit by $250,000. So we need to think about these things really carefully. What my hope is, and it's tied with my concern has been all along the ability to fundraise, and I've sort of held my breath and said, okay, well, once we come to an agreement, maybe then the donors will step up. I'm very concerned that the 12,000, I'm talking, so I need you to be still. Thank you. that the donors will step up and we will see a immediate infusion of money come in. That's my hope. So I hope we can take advantage of that, and there will be a good response immediately. And I think that will give you the energy to go forward as well. What happens afterwards, if the program doesn't succeed, if the funds aren't raised, I think everyone needs to understand that we've got a situation here where even in the worst case scenario, what we would be doing is preserving our lakefront and restoring the dunes and recreating the natural environment that was there as closely as it can be duplicated to when Marquette and Joliet came into Evanston, right there at the foot of Lighthouse Beach. I think that's inspiring. It's always been inspiring for my family, my son, and all Evanstonians I've talked to. So I'm willing to go ahead with this, but as long as there are firm benchmarks in place. We have been sitting up here talking about this for, 3 to 4 years? That's long enough. I mean, I think Mayor Tisdall asked for certain benchmarks to be met financially. They weren't met. Then we went through the RFP. I think behind the more or less cumbersome or slow methodical approach we were taking was a concern that the money wouldn't be there. So I think it's all up to you now to show us that our faith in you has been well placed, even although we're holding our breath, that our faith in you is well placed and that we see immediate response. So that's the $250,000. I think we need to talk about that. And I think we need to really spell out what those benchmarks are and hold everyone to them. And I would take out the word may in the may have options to shall, because I think this has to be the final push. I can't see that it's fair to the council or the community to keep this going and hopefully wish that things would happen. I am extremely concerned about getting into a position where maybe you're close but not quite, and so more events need to happen or more food needs to be served or more. I don't want to see that happening to the lakefront. My first primary goal, serving as alderman, and I've said this all the times I've run, is preservation of the lakefront. It's our one jewel, the one thing that is irreplaceable to us, and I don't want to compromise it in any way, so I hope all of you can respect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk, Alderman Wilson, and then Alderman Rainey.
And thank you. And just, I guess, to cover that point about the money, the prior discussions about I think it was an up to $250,000 to do maintenance work at the property, but I don't think it was any of our intentions to make any contributions to any fundraising. So to the extent that we end up expending money to maintain the property, so be it, but we're not allocating any money to the fundraising. And I mean, if a door needs to be fixed, if it needs to be kept secure, whatever it is, that's different. But at this point, I think our role is primarily just to keep the property from further deterioration and see how it goes. Cross our fingers and put our faith in the group. So.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Rainey, and then Alderman Ravel.
To follow up on Alderman Fisk, while we've had the issue before us for years, we've only had this before us since Thursday, really, the proposal. So starting from there, City Manager, when are you going to bring this back to us? You're going to be negotiating for how long?
The motion from Alderman Ravel has me bringing this back on January 22nd.
Okay, January. So that's when we'll really make our decision. Is that correct? That's when we're really going to know something. All right. Then on the $250,000, that needs to be in a Harley Clark budget. does it not, in a line item for Harley Clark?
Alderman Rainey, members of the council, if you recall, the council had this discussion about 18 months ago, and the decision was made, rather than to put money into the building, we invested the money in the fog houses. So that money has been spent. That exceeded the $250,000. Again, the council can allocate funds however it chooses to allocate funds, but it was your previous discussion that I think that money that was previously talked about, that $250, was invested in the fog houses.
So it's been spent.
That's correct.
And do the Lake House people understand that?
I don't know. I mean, it's a fact of that. I think the council has been nonspecific about the $250,000. So I think, as has been said this evening, the proposal included that. If you authorize me to negotiate with them, I will take whatever direction you give if that money is available, as Alderman Wilson's indicated, for future maintenance. If the council wishes to make the donation, that's up to the council to decide.
Well, if the council is willing to make the donation, I saw people here tonight pleading for their jobs that they've already lost. So I want to know before I vote tonight, whose jobs are going down before we put this $250 in on a line item for Harley Clark.
And also, I'm not.
All I want to know.
And Alderman Rainey, members of the council, I'm not sure in which fiscal year that $250,000 would be spent, if the council would so choose to spend it. This is a multi-year project. If the council wishes to give direction this evening, that would be very helpful. If not, that'll be a point of discussion, and we'll come back on January 22nd.
Why I'm asking the question, because Alderman Fisk raised the...
Certainly. So I would take whatever direction the council has.
Alderman Revelle, and then we'll go to Alderman Nguyen.
Sure. So to contradict the city manager, just to clarify about the funding that was used to redo the roofs of the fog houses was taken from other parts of the capital improvements program for last year. But so technically the $250,000 was never spent. But when we talked about the $250,000 a year ago, we were in a better budget position. And I don't think today, as we're getting ready to approve the 2018 budget with all the cuts that we're having to make, I'm not asking that we reallocate the $250,000 to the property.
So are you
I'm not asking for the $250,000.
Okay, so your motion does not include the $250,000.
It doesn't mention it. Mm-hmm.
Alderman Nguyen.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Alderman Revelle. I am supportive of this project. I think that I know it's been a tough and difficult road to get here, but frankly, I have to say I think the proposal is significantly better than it has ever been before. And I think part of that is because of the fact that we really needed to think very hard about this, and the community needed to show us that we could have faith in this proposal, and so it got tighter and tighter and better and better. And I think what is being proposed here is very exciting, and I have tremendous hope for great success. And like the other members of the council, we all have a fiduciary duty to all of you. We do need to make sure that there are aspects of this agreement that protect the whole city and the residents of Evanston. So I look forward to what the city manager comes back with, and I look forward to what will happen at Harley Clark. Thank you.
Great. All right, seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you take the roll on the motion that was seconded to direct the city manager based on the conditions that Alderman Revelle put forward in her motion?
Sorry, may I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I just want to clarify what Alderman Rainey said. So we're voting now to go forward with the contract, but at the time of the contract, we still have time to discuss and clarify.
This council will see that contract. It will be in the packet.
Right, but we can discuss and clarify the terms of the contract.
It will come up for a vote.
Okay, thank you.
The contract will be. We're just directing the city manager right now to draft it.
Do we really need a roll call? Are we just not sending it off to the city manager to deal with this? I'm not voting on any money.
It's up to you all. If you'd like to do a voice vote, that's fine too.
All right, we'll do a voice vote instead if people would prefer. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
May I ask a question? Alderman Ravel, do you have that motion in writing? Thank you.
All right. So the motion has passed. The city manager will work with the Evanston Lake House and Gardens Group to put an agreement in place that we will see later in January. Alderman Fleming, did you have your light on, or I didn't turn it off? Okay, I didn't turn it off. Okay. All right. So what I am suggesting we do is let's move to the consent agenda. I know we have another item on the consent agenda, the Albion development that there were many people here talking about. And then when we finish the consent agenda, I would like to come back to do SP2 at that point. So on the consent agenda, I'm sorry, APW these days is Alderman Rainey. Could you move the minutes and then the payroll?
Get my act together here.
You take minutes off.
Yeah, with the minutes, I've got a correction for A16 and A15, so that's been noted.
All right, so what? We're taking the minutes
So the minutes are being held.
You want to hold them?
No.
You don't want to hold them?
No.
You just want to make the changes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so do you want to go through just take it off the consent and we'll go through the changes later.
All right, so I'll start with the consent agenda, no minutes. All right.
Can't hear you.
Including October 16. Alderman Wilson? October
It was actually
16?
Alderman Ravel's question.
Let's take everything.
Okay, so I'm going to move approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 16. And Administration and Public Works Committee met this evening. I move approval of the payroll October 2nd in the amount of $2,827,561.55. October 16 payroll in the amount of $2,777,035.56. The bills list this week through November 14, $3,500,176.11. The credit card activity, not including Amazon, totaled $145,097.60. Remind me,
Let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and go ahead and move for the vote, and then we'll.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of those items.
Second.
Okay, City Clerk, could you take the roll?
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Yes.
Alderman Sufferton? Yes. Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Fleming?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen? Alderman Wilson?
All right, so M1A1, A21 pass 9-0.
Move approval of credit card activity ending September 30th that involves Amazon credit card payments, $11,807.84. Move approval.
Second.
All right, City Clerk, can you take the roll?
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton? Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Fleming?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen? Aye. Alderman Wilson?
All right, A2.2 passes 8.
Moving on with the consent agenda. Request council approval of the construction bid award for Chandler Newberger Community Center. Did we held this in
Yes,
committee?
that was held.
We held this, sorry. Second, committee asks your approval to authorize the city manager to execute contracts for snow towing services in an amount not to exceed $60,000. We ask your approval also for support of the Downtown Evanston 2018 budget from 3 sources of funds. One is the Special Service Area 4 tax levy, $370,000 for for downtown operations and maintenance, approval of $98,670 equally split between Washington National TIF and Economic Development Division for additional maintenance contract reimbursements, and $83,000 from Economic Development Division for supplemental marketing and economic development activities. We ask your approval also for Economic Development Committee and staff support a recommendation to City Council for approval of a special service area number 6 budget. This is for 2018. We ask your approval for a sole source purchase of Cisco Systems Enterprise License Agreement 2.0 cybersecurity software from Heartland Business Systems. The software platform licenses and professional services will be approximately $55,425 each year, since 2 Cisco products are already in use and will be rolled into this security suite. We ask your approval to authorize the manager to renew the Dell PowerEdge and EqualLogic SAN support service agreement from Dell Technology and the cost of $42,851 for 12 months of support. The Transportation Parking Committee recommends that the City Council consider approving free holiday parking in the city's 3 downtown self-parking garages, Lot 60 located at 1234 Chicago Avenue, Lot 4 located at the corner of Central and Stewart, Lot 15 located at 720 Main Street, and Lot 24 located at 727 Main Street on weekdays between 5 p.m. and 12 midnight and all day on Saturday beginning Thursday, November 23rd. The Mental Health Board and staff recommend City Council approval of the proposed allocation of $736,373 in 2018 for 17 nonprofit agencies to provide needed social services to Evanston residents. Allocations range from $10,000 to $70,250 for 21 individual programs. The 2018 mental health allocation amount was reduced 4% in keeping with the overall city budget reductions. We're requesting the council adopt Resolution 89 R17, which authorizes the manager to sign a 2-year agreement with Rose Pest Solutions for the provision of rodent control services for residential properties and public places in the city of Evanston at the amount of $74,880 for a period January 1, 2018, December 31st, 2018, and $74,880 for the period January 1, 2019 to December 31, 2019. Moving along, City Council consideration is requested for Resolution 87R17, authorizing City of Evanston to issue a settlement payment. This is off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. Staff recommends City Council adopt Resolution 88R17, authorizing the manager to apply for Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant funds for the Main Street Corridor Improvement Project on Main Street from Maple Avenue to Hinman Avenue. Ordinance 120-017 amends the city code to establish a 4-way stop control at the intersection of Harrison Street and Marcy Avenue. At the request of Alderman Suffredin, we're moving to introduce and suspend the rules and take action on this item this evening. The Transportation and Parking Committee and staff recommend that the City Council adopt Ordinance 138-017, amending the city code to establish right turn only from Greenwood Street onto Ridge Avenue between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. This is for introduction this evening. The Transportation and Parking Committee and staff recommend that the City Council adopt Ordinance 139-017, amending the city code to establish truck routes on various streets around Sheridan Road. This is for introduction. Ordinance 140-017 is also for introduction and amends the city code, operation of vehicles carrying merchandise restricted by amending restrictions on Sheridan Road. Ordinance 126-017, amending the city code, loading zones by adding the west side of Custer Avenue north of Madison Street, changing the hours of school loading zone on the west side of Custer Avenue, 75 feet north of Madison Street, from all-day loading zone to morning and afternoon loading zone to coincide with the school's hour of operation. This is for introduction and action at the request of Alderman Fleming. Staff recommends City Council adopt Ordinance 135-017, directing the manager to offer for sale vehicle owned by the city through public auction. This is on Tuesday, December 12, or any other subsequent online auction. This is for introduction and action at the request of Alderman Braithwaite. Ordinance 110-017, decreasing the number of Class D liquor licenses for farmhouse located at 703 Church Street, for action. Ordinance 11-017, increasing the number of Class C liquor license for farmhouse located at 703 Church Street, for action. That concludes the Administration and Public Works consent agenda.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Nguyen, could you take us through planning and development?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, we have item P1, granting vacation rental license to, this was held at the committee and will be discussed at the November 27th meeting. And then item number P2 failed to be introduced at the committee, ordinance 88-017. So it will not come to the council.
Okay.
Item P3 is ordinance 103-017, special use permit for planned development located at 1450 to 1508 Sherman Avenue in the D4 Downtown Transition District. This is for action this evening.
Okay, no one wants, okay.
Yeah. Would you take that off the?
Would you like to hold that, Alderman Fisk?
At the request of an alderman, that item has been, is off the agenda.
Okay. All right.
That's all we have tonight from P&D.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the appointments.
Oh, yes, go ahead and move the appointments.
Appointments to the Inclusionary Housing Subcommittee, Jolene Saul, Kent Swanson, and Lynn Robinson.
Could you take that off the consent agenda, please?
That's off the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. One held. Okay, is there a second on the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, second. Okay, City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin? Yes. Alderman Ravel? Aye. Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Fleming?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda passes the City Council 9-0. Okay, Alderman Rainey.
Minutes first.
Excuse me, the minutes. Yeah, let's go to the minutes first. Alderman Wilson on the minutes.
The corrections have already been emailed to all of you.
Okay, and City Clerk, would you just run through the corrections for us?
Item A16 and A15, as well as P5, were mistakenly added to the minutes, where they shouldn't have appeared. They were held in committee.
Okay, so the minutes, you took them off the minutes and
sent it.
And,
yep.
Okay, and that covers those concerns?
Yes.
Okay, so with the corrections, I move that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes 9-0. Okay, Alderman Rainey, A5.
Yes, A5. A5. Mr. Mayor, I move Resolution 87R17, which is approving a settlement in Robinson versus the City of Evanston. Staff submits for City Council consideration Resolution 87R17, authorizing the City of Evanston issue a settlement payment pursuant to a release and settlement agreement in Suzette Robinson versus the City of Evanston et al. Funding will be from the insurance fund. It's for action, and I need to explain the committee's action. We could not get a second for this item, and subsequently, after some discussion, it was the interest of the committee to get a second so that we could bring it to the committee for a discussion.
Bring it to the council, yes. Okay.
To the council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. Obviously, making a decision to settle litigation is not something one would want to do, and particularly given our financial circumstances. But there are occasions when you have to make a business decision, and we're up here, we're responsible for the taxpayers' money, and from time to time there are circumstances where it's incumbent. Let me put it this way: I don't want to make a decision to spend taxpayer money to prove a point or to win. So there are occasions like this, in my view, where you have to make the business decision. It's a smart business decision, and move past the litigation. And I think that's what this is about.
Okay. Seeing no lights, City Clerk, could you take the roll, please? Oh, Alderman Rainey.
So I figured there would be some comment like that, and I understand that. But in this case, I felt that it was very important for someone to make a statement that, well, yes, this was a business decision because I was involved in the discussion where it was a business decision, and the likelihood of this case being decided in our favor was slim, having nothing to do with the facts of the case. But in my opinion, having lived through this, I know for a fact, as factual as I can possibly be, that our city manager in no way discriminated against this woman because of race or gender, and that she did not function in an unhealthy work environment. I realize that we're dealing with the taxpayers' money, and I truly believe that if we don't settle this case, this woman will go after the Evanston taxpayer for every last penny she can bleed out of us. However, I think at some point, a person just at some point, and maybe even a city at some point, has to stand up to this kind of action. And I believe our city attorney and our city human resources person and our city manager have done nothing wrong. And I'm going to vote no to this settlement for those very reasons.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Rainey. Okay, City Clerk, we have a motion with a second. Can you please take the roll?
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin?
No.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
No.
Alderman Fleming?
No.
Alderman Fisk?
Aye.
Alderman Braithwaite? Aye. Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Okay. A5, Resolution 87-R-17, approving settlement in the Robinson versus City of Evanston, passes the City Council 6-3. Okay. Alderman Nguyen, would you like to introduce P3? I think that's the next thing that was held.
Yes, P3 is ordinance 103-017, special use permit for planned development located at 1450 to 1508 Sherman Avenue in the D4 Downtown Transition District. I move approval
Is there a second?
to get this going.
Second.
Okay. Seeing, okay, there's a light or two. Okay, I was about to take a vote. Alderman Wilson and then Alderman Rainey.
A lot's been said, and I'm repeating myself in some sense, but there are, I think, a lot of people who are here that haven't been here on prior occasions. But at the end of the day, a lot of the conversations in our community are about whether or not housing is affordable. And setting aside the concept of subsidizing housing, we have made decisions, and we continue to make decisions that will have an impact on what the affordability looks like. Interestingly, a few people have actually forwarded the article from the National Geographic, which I happen to have seen, talking about Boulder, and people in Boulder are among the happiest in the country. But what didn't really get covered in that article is at what cost. And when you dig into the really severe impacts on the demographics, on the affordability, to me, looking at the Boulder model is frankly it's probably one of the worst case scenarios. You have single family homes bumping up around $1 million for a median price. They've lost, I think, 30% of their black population in the past 5 or 6 years. That's down from 0.9% in the first place. At the same time, their population's increased 10,000. So, to me, that's not a model that I want to follow. We have an environment where a lot of developers are coming to town looking to do projects, big projects. Why is that? It's because Evanston is a great place to live. It's ideally located. Why wouldn't people want to live here, right? That's why you're all here. You're all here because you love Evanston. Everybody's passionate about this place. People are passionate about protecting it. But when you have something of great, great value, other people want to participate in that. And I get that, and I can appreciate that. It's important for us to protect what we have, but at the same time, it's important for us not to inadvertently harm the people around us. Putting a building on an empty lot, or effectively an empty lot, is not running anyone out of town. That's just not true. If we add more units to the housing stock, somebody made a comment about the Park Evanston, they're going to be putting more money into that to improve it. Why are they doing that? They're doing that because they can charge more rents. Someone else made a comment about one of the other buildings being concerned about the competition. The only way to stabilize those prices, okay, remember econ class from high school? You have to get enough supply so the prices stabilize, or those prices will continue to escalate. I read an opinion piece in the Denver Post about Boulder, and they were talking about the idea that what that community is doing is they described it as it's keeping the working poor asset poor and creating a permanent underclass. We don't want to do that here. And putting this building up does not contribute to that. In fact, it does the opposite. It's not running anybody out of town. The 2009 plan that a lot of people are saying we need to follow the 2009 plan. I've talked about this a lot. The 2009 plan calls for a lot of large buildings west of the tracks. So for those of you who are concerned about gentrification, this building in this weird, quirky little corner, that's not too gentrifying. But if you go and you look at the 2009 plan, if you look at the plan, you will see large buildings west of the tracks encroaching on the neighborhoods. Okay, I think you're going to find that is much more closely tailored to the thing that you're afraid of happening. So a number of people early on in this process sat down, looked me in the eye, and wanted restaurants or high-end housing, things of that nature. And it's interesting to see how the arguments have evolved from that to the affordable housing. I appreciate the commitment of people who are talking about affordable housing. I truly do. But I don't think that this building is hurting that. When the proposal was first made, it was compliant with the code. They were going to have a couple of units, and they were going to put the full amount of the money in. That is code compliant. They could have done that and been code compliant. But a lot of people in the community voiced an opinion that it was important to have units in the building. When we passed the ordinance in the first place, I and some of my colleagues had very strong reservations about the economic impact. What didn't get addressed was the actual cost of putting the units in. So what I sometimes wonder is for some of the people who are saying, now, late in the game, you have to put all the units in, you have to put all the units in, I wonder if that's really just a way to kind of try to, steer us towards that bolder model. I don't want to do that. I want us to be thoughtful about making sure that we maintain affordability in our community. I want to make sure that we improve our inclusionary housing ordinance so that it is functional, so that we can have an ordinance that works, it's not one or two sizes fits all, and that it accomplishes the goals that we're trying to accomplish. In the interim, we've got somebody who's willing to invest a large amount of money in the community. They're willing to put some units in, and this is not the terrible, terrible thing that some people are making it out to be. For those of you who are working on the affordable housing issues, I want you to stay committed, just like with the Lake House thing. Stay involved and stay committed. We have a bunch of other projects that, frankly, some of those are not nearly as appealing as this. So we have to be diligent on what we're asking from the developers. We have to be diligent and expeditious in developing a better inclusionary housing ordinance. And I think if we follow what we believe in and follow our core values, we are going to accomplish a lot. But sitting on an empty lot or building a lovely extended dining experience doesn't accomplish those goals. We have businesses, and we've heard from them. They are very concerned about their viability. Restaurants are concerned about foot traffic. Now, points that I think are very, very important, and I'm not forgetting, is that this is going to be a significant impact on existing businesses. I have high expectations of the developer. I have high expectations of how the construction process is going to proceed. I am very disappointed with the way the contractors have executed on the Fountain Square project. I will not let our staff tolerate more of that. So that is of great importance. I expect the process to proceed in an orderly fashion. I expect the businesses that are impacted, where I'm a customer, my family is a customer, these are important businesses to myself, my family, and our community. We want them to stay. We want them to remain viable. We want them to expand as we have this increased population base. So that's a goal, but I don't want to run them out of town in the interim. So those are my thoughts, and of course, I'm sure some of my colleagues have thoughts as well.
All right, thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Rainey.
Well, on the matter of construction, while the building's being constructed, I don't believe Albion is going to allow for sloppy construction. That's just not going to happen, and it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I want to talk to somebody who mentioned they live in the building with the orange balconies. I don't know if you were hanging out around here when they were talking about building that building, but boy, everybody hated the idea of that building. So you're living in a building that everybody hated before it got built. And look, we all survived. It's so amazing. And Sherman Plaza, oh my God, that was going to be the end of life as we know it. I mean, you cannot build Sherman Plaza, though it's just going to be horrible. Nobody's going to be able to get around. We all survived it. And the same is going to be with this building. And for Ms. Payden to take this building and pit it against her properties, that's ridiculous. We cannot pit one set of housing, one kind of housing against another kind of housing. I no longer support the idea of putting all affordable housing in high-rise buildings. Think of what we're talking about now. I used to think it might be a good idea to put a bunch of large units in high-rise buildings. But just think about that. Why should we stuff families in high-rise buildings? That doesn't make any sense. You know what? Why don't you be quiet?
Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers. This is the opportunity for the council to talk.
I never once, Claire Kelly, your mother would just...
Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers. This is Alderman Rainey's opportunity to speak right now, Ms. Kelly. No, this is Alderman Rainey's opportunity.
I'm just going to vote yes on this. I'm not saying anything else.
Okay, let's Alderman Fleming's opportunity now.
People are ruining your chances
Alderman,
for discussion. I want to say one more thing.
Let's go on to Alderman Rainey. Let's go to Alderman Fleming.
Go ahead.
Let's.
Let her finish her thought.
I've had a lifetime history working on housing.
I know you have, and you've shared an opinion. Let's go. I want to make sure we'll come back.
All right. So
I have no respect for that. How dare you
So
do that?
this is my first time speaking of this, despite all the emails that have accused me of not speaking. So I have a couple of things to say. One, to Mr. Ewell, who I don't even know, I applaud your patience, because I you're here, and there's been a lot of stuff said about you that I hope you actually did not say. I don't know, but so I just applaud your patience. This second thing is, I have to tell you, I'm not a development person. The building doesn't speak to me and what have you. But it has been disheartening for me as a lifetime Evanstonian to hear this conversation. I am all about affordable housing. I am, I guess progressive. I obviously appreciate diversity as a person of color. But to hear some things that have been said about this building have been really disheartening. And I try to think that it's because of the political climate we live in nationally, but to hear that this building is the epitome of white supremacy, and this building is why black people don't live here. I'm a black person, and I know black people who don't live here, and I know black people who are moving, and more of them are moving because of the referendum that has spiked everyone's property taxes than because of Albion. And I knocked on every door in my ward, some twice. And I talked to elderly people who were moving because they can't afford their property taxes. That had nothing to do with the Albion building. So, I think that we definitely have some affordability things we need to work on, but it's really frustrating to hear people who genuinely care about affordability and diversity to kind of get steered into thinking all of that is on this one building. And I can say that as somebody who comes from a family that does not like change, that protested things and didn't like cobblestone streets being paved over and so on and so forth. So I understand change and people not liking everything, but I also understand that, we are a community and everything is not for everybody. And so there's plenty of things that I'm going to vote on and I support that I wouldn't spend my money on personally, but I understand there's a greater good. And so I just would encourage people who have signed this petition, who have called and emailed, to stay engaged, but to make sure you're engaged on the factual things. I think it's very easy to pick one thing that seems to speak to you and to get engaged on that and follow people who are organizing. And I applaud organizing, but it has got to be factual. And so I know that a lot of African Americans have moved out, but the Albion building wasn't even proposed then. And I know lots of African Americans who have stayed and maybe moved into some of these buildings. So we definitely can talk about race, and everyone up here knows I can talk about race all night, but I will not say that this building is causing a racial divide. We have other things that cause racial divides. So let's be honest about what those are and not blame them on Mr. Ewell. And so my last thing real quick is that I also want to just, I also just want to speak about the community benefits, because that is the area which I wish that the developer had worked a little harder on. Just because I understand the things he has proposed, and they will be lovely for his space and, some surrounding space around him, but there's other parts of our city that might
be able to use art or so on and so forth. So in my opinion, a community benefit is something that will go anywhere in the community that's going to benefit everyone, not just people who live around a certain area. And I know there's parts of the city that don't get the same support because they don't have economic development as downtown does. And so I would love to have seen community benefits be spread out further around the city, not just around this building.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming. Alderman Nguyen, and then we'll go to Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said 2 weeks ago, I do not support this project, but like Alderman Fleming, I do think Mr. Ewell has worked very hard and is remarkably patient with this process. We've had other developers come to the city who have not been nearly as willing to make changes in a building, to listen to the level of public comment that we have had, the vitriol that we have all listened to, I think is out of proportion to what this building is doing in our downtown. And I am very sorry about that. I mean, I think we all need to take 3 or 4 steps back in terms of the level of anger and outrage and vitriol that we all feel. I disagree with the way Alderman Rainey is going to vote, but we all have to work together for the benefit, and we have to give each other the benefit of the doubt, and that's not been happening here in this community. This has crossed my mind as I took notes on every person who got up and spoke. At least 4 of us on this council have already indicated that we're not in support of this building, and yet all of you who are opposed to this building gave all of us a tongue lashing. So no, you know what?
Order.
And that's part of our job. And I just want to point that out, that there are 4 of us up here who are opposed to this building. And yet, all of you, and I don't need a pat on the back, but I just want to say, it's part of persuading. That's what the point is, to persuade. I'm a lawyer. I've been in front of judges who I know I don't like, but I work to make them see my argument. So I think this block is both a transitional block and is a traditional block. And it was recognized by that in our downtown plan. It isn't that we designated that and then we are creating that. We recognize the value of transitional areas in our zoning, and they have to be respected. And when we don't value those and we don't recognize how important they are, we really damage the overall fabric of how our zoning fits together. And that is why I am opposed to this building. It's too big, it's too dense, and it is not transitional. And that's really important. And Alderman Revelle and I have already discussed ways in which we can find parts of our downtown plan, the 2009 plan, that parts of it are excellent, that we can make sure that we endorse and send the message out to the development community. This is what we are looking for in our community, because we can't continue to have this kind of pitched, ferocious battle in our community. It's too damaging. And the council needs to take ownership of the fact that we need to make sure we have a clear plan that the development community knows and the citizens understand, so that you all don't have to become experts in zoning, and the development community doesn't have to spend enormous amounts of money on something that then gets changed. That is not productive for any of us. So I am voting no on this project. I think we need something better. Please don't. But I do respect my other council members for how thoughtful they have been about this. We've all received, just over the weekend, I've received 300 emails about issues that we have that are coming before the council tonight, on tonight's meeting. And I know we have all read this material, we've listened to all of you, and we've done our own independent research. I didn't realize Alderman Wilson was sitting here looking at Boulder. I was sitting here looking at Boulder at the same time. So I think we just need to dial back the level of fury and anger and vitriol and recognize that that's not how we deliberate and work towards the good of Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Fisk, and then Alderman Rainey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look on things just a tiny bit differently, having spent most of my adult life sitting on that side of the dais in the audience trying to convince one or two people up here to see things my way. And one of the things I've tried to do as alderman is to reinforce not only to my colleagues but to the audience as well, is that we need to have ordinances and policies that are clear to the public. And the zoning ordinance is one thing that years ago I borrowed Alderman Ravel's zoning ordinance, and she had a zoning map up on her wall at home, and I went, wow, so this is the Bible as far as development is concerned, and I'm sure she remembers that. But I want for our public and our residents to be able to know when they pick up the zoning ordinance what it is that might be built on a certain site, and we don't have that right now, and that becomes very frustrating. And it becomes very frustrating when people can't figure out what it is that we're talking about, what the rules are, where we're going, and especially now that we're talking about public benefits and planned developments and all of this, it's very frustrating to people. And I know that firsthand, and I'm sensitive to that. I don't support this building, as I've told all of you a million times before. The building is too large, it's too dense. The problem with the site is something that can't be overcome. It's, to me, like putting a size 10 foot into a size 4 shoe. You can't get a good result here. But with a different development and a different design, you could. And that's part of what's so frustrating to me, is that we could have a good design on this block, but we can only have a good design if we have a developer who we've told that's what we want. And to me, that's what our zoning ordinance is. So that's kind of hard for me to tussle with. And so I hear your frustration. I understand it. I'm absolutely not going to argue or tell you that you shouldn't be feeling that way, because if I were in your shoes, I'd be feeling exactly the same way. What I am concerned about are some of the public benefits, because as I look at the list of public benefits and I say $50,000 here, $50,000 there, and this and that, I mean, we're almost talking real money. I mean, we're talking something that we can, if we really thought about how many of these public benefits are actually really useful to us, that really serve the city and in what ways they serve the city, I think we'd have a little bit of a different discussion. But we don't. And some of these that are on here have just appeared on today, and I don't think we've had a discussion about some of them at all in terms of being on the council, and that's frustrating to me as well. So I think as far as our, going forward, one of the challenges to the entire council is going to be looking at what we want to include as public benefits. You all have heard me say I don't want to hear about divvy bike stations anymore in my entire life. I love divvy bikes. I'm always happy when I see someone riding them, but I don't consider that a public benefit. And some of my colleagues on the council do, and so we need to have that discussion. Again, for all the reasons I've said over and over again, I will be voting against this. My one caution is that I'm firmly convinced that we're overbuilding rental residential in the downtown, and I think we've done enough. This is a block that needs development. I mean, the buildings are not of a very high quality. We could do, I can think of a number of really interesting developments we could do. This is a block that needs development. It needs to be cleaned up. So that part of it I certainly support. But I want all of you to, now that you know as much as you do about how these things are done, we need you to always stay engaged, especially as these other projects are coming down the road. We need to hear from you again, but understand that we do listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Rainey, and then Alderman Braithwaite.
Well, one of the concerns that I had and Alderman Simmons had regarding this project were the public benefits. And one of the negatives about being on the city council is we don't get to talk to each other except one-on-one, really, because it's illegal. And usually we don't get to talk to each other in a group because it's usually 10:30 or 11 o'clock when we get to talk to each other in a group. And the way public benefits come about is that our staff lays them out to a developer. And a developer says, oh, okay, that's what you want me to do as a public benefit, that's what I'll do. So two of us can speak to one another. We can discuss an item on an agenda or an item before the council. So Alderman Simmons and I were talking, and she said, well, I think this divvy bike thing is just really ridiculous. And I said, well, I think this public art thing is ridiculous. So we put our heads together, the oldest brain and the youngest brain, and we came up with some really good ideas. And we went to the developer, Mr. Yule, and we sat down with him and we had a conversation. And I'm going to let Alderman Simmons tell you about her conversation, and I'm going to tell you about mine. I'm going to make an amendment tonight to the public benefit having to do with the arts part. We're not adding a nickel to Mr. Yule's or to Albion's public art contribution. However, we are going to add to the expanse to which the public art affects. You want to talk about affecting the whole city. So the idea we came up for public art is we are proposing, and the developer loves it, and Paul Gorin, superintendent of District 65, thinks it's fabulous, as does the head of arts or whatever that person's title is at District 65. We are proposing the $50,000 goes to District 65 for the purpose of serving every single 7th grade student to experience a performing arts performance. In other words, every 7th grade class, once the money comes in, is paid. We don't know if it'll be this year, probably not this year, but probably next year. Every 7th grade class will go to a performing arts event, either at Northlight or downtown Chicago, whatever the district decides. And that will serve 850 families. And it's just the most exciting thing because it will be spread throughout the entire city. Not just one neighborhood, not just 10 neighborhoods, but every single neighborhood. And they just think it's very exciting. And one of the things that we said that we would do is we would encourage, because we didn't want it just to be this one 7th grade class, but every 7th grade class for the next 3 or 4 developments, so that this 7th grade, next 7th grade, next 7th grade all got to experience it. Anyway, so that was the idea for the middle school. And then we had a high school proposal.
Oh, thank you. So I said a lot last time we had a discussion about this, and I really don't have anything new to add. I want to support very much what Alderman Fleming's had to say. So in public benefit, absolutely, I think that much of the public benefit were actually amenities to the property and not good enough. So I didn't start at replacing the divvy bike, which I disagree with as a public benefit, but I did challenge Mr. Ewell to increase the 50% AMI units. And we talked about that, and I believe that has been changed. So we have 50% AMI units, where before we were at 80% and 60%. So that's going to allow for more affordable units in the building. I think that is more responsible for the families. And so in place of the divvy, which we seem to have plenty of, I suggested that we respond to a census tract that we have here in Evanston that is the only census tract in our city that is a registered food desert. We have been registered in the west end of Evanston as a food desert with the Chicago Food Depository, and we have a underserved farmers market, and within a 1-mile radius we do not have access to fresh food. So my proposal in lieu of the divvy bike was a freight farm, which is a really innovative, and I want to tell you it was inspired by a resident that had a suggestion, Mr. Katz?
Dr. Katz.
Dr. Katz.
My neighbor.
Okay, so I had a couple of residents give some suggestions, and the freight farm is equivalent. It's a freight container. It's 360 square feet. It produces 2 to 4 tons of produce per year. It takes only 10 gallons of water and about 10 hours of labor to harvest. And it would be an opportunity for food insecure residents to have access to fresh foods. It would be a nice resource for our farmers market that's at Church and Dodge currently, as you know, has very little participation from farmers for various reasons. So that was my proposal. We could use, again, the Evanston High School student body to harvest it, to have it as possibly a STEM project, a entrepreneur project, one in engineering. It's one that I've mentioned to staff, have not worked it out. But if the high school is unwilling, I'm sure that there are other organizations in town, possibly Edible Evanston or some other nonprofit that's concerned about food insecurities. So that was my suggestion. In addition to that, having some of the objections and concerns in the downtown Evanston and the lack of activities for our young people and some recent activities that happened this summer. So that was very strategic and thoughtful in that 7th grade class. It wasn't just a random age group. It's a group, it's a population that currently does not have access to recreation that they would like. They don't qualify for a summer youth job program. They're too cool to hang out with their parents. They want some, some independence and something else to do. So that's why we thought that the 7th grade population would be great.
And so did the superintendent. He thought that was a perfect selection.
Great. Thank you, Alderman Rainey and Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Braithwaite and then Alderman Fisk.
I was ready to call the question.
Let's just go to Alderman Fisk.
Okay, I feel a little uncomfortable about this. I have to tell you that I would expect, and maybe I'm just naive, but I would expect that we would have a list of public benefits that we could draw from, not just come up with a public benefit that happens for each particular development, but I think I don't disagree with any of the ones that you had suggested, the two that you had just suggested just now. I'm not sure. I mean, in our packet it says wherever the shipping container is, that's going to be located somewhere near the development site. I'm not sure where we're going to put a shipping container in downtown Evanston. I'm sorry, Alderman Rainey, it says this right here in the packet. This is what I'm going with. This is what we're going to be voting on. And I need to have public benefits spelled out. Here's our list of public benefits. And if we're going to add to that list of public benefits, then we should talk about it as a council in planning and development or wherever and come up with a list of public benefits, not just have them bounce up at the last minute. So I think it's great for seventh graders to go to plays. Is that the public benefit we want? We should be talking about it. I want us to do things in a way, again, that's transparent to the public, that they know what the selection would be, so it doesn't appear that we're just flying by the seat of our pants on some of these things, because that's not a good place to be coming from.
Okay, Alderman Nguyen and then Alderman Rainey.
All right. At either the last Public Planning and Development Committee or the prior one, I specifically made a request of the community development staff that we have a discussion about what are public benefits for here in Evanston, what we all can agree on. I think these are interesting ideas, but recognizing that this list on this particular project was not one that satisfied a number of us here on the council, I asked the community development director at a meeting, an upcoming meeting, for staff to prepare a memo to talk about what are potential other public benefits, what we've recognized here in Evanston as public benefits, what other communities are using as public benefits, and to really think in a very innovative way, or what are our public benefits, so that we can make suggestions to future developers on here are the public benefits that we want to see here in Evanston. So I did make that reference, Alderman Fisk, and I expect that we will have that discussion and develop that list in the coming months.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Rainey.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, what I'm going to propose is that we move approval of this project and leave the identification of the public benefits, the amount allotted to public benefits, the total amount allotted to public benefits in the ordinance, but the identification of those public benefits blank for the time being. But we need to move this along. There's issues having to do with financing, et cetera, that have nothing to do with whether or not the developer can identify what those public benefits are, but to leave the dollar amount in there, because for us to drag this any longer is ridiculous.
Alderman Wilson.
All right, just to make sure I'm clear, so Alderman Rainey, basically, we've got the list on pages 467 and 468. So you're saying we leave this list, but for, you're talking about the arts question, for example, number 4, it's an amount for public art, but it doesn't say exactly what this art program is going to be. So we'll just leave it as is.
Categories.
Categories, okay. So we'll leave these categories as they are, correct?
Can we take the divvy out? I mean, it's not a category that...
Well, I mean, it's in there, and we're not swapping it out, so we might as well take everything we can get, right? So I'm not going to take anything out.
Swap it.
Your shipping containers in here, so
okay.
It's already in here. So is the divvy membership. So 1 through 19 are all in here. So
we've got
there's a motion.
There's a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor that was seconded.
All right.
Which is the main motion. Okay, on P3, Ordinance 103-0-17, special use permit for planned development located at 1508 Sherman Avenue in the D4 Downtown Transition District. Seeing Ms. Kelly, Ms. Kelly, the deliberation has occurred. We do not cut you off or anyone else off during public comment. No, we have minutes. We have 45 minutes, you guys. We have 45 minutes. We are going to take the vote. There is no requirement that every alderman has to speak. All right? This is democracy. Everyone up here is elected, okay, by everybody in Evanston. All right. City Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin?
Yes.
Alderman Revelle?
No.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Fleming?
No.
Alderman Fisk? Alderman Braithwaite?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
No.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 103-0-17, special use permit for planned development located at 1450, 1508 Sherman Avenue in the D4 Downtown Transition District passes 5-4. Okay. Next. Ma'am, we have been talking about this issue on this Albion development. Let's just be clear, everyone. We have been talking about it. There are many people in Evanston, you guys. There were 75,000 people in Evanston. There were 300 or 200 here tonight. Okay? All right. We understand. We understand. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're going to move to the next item that was taken off the agenda, which was the appointments. Okay, just one comment. One comment.
Texas and the people who live in Evanston.
One comment about appointments. One comment about appointments.
Just keep going.
Okay. Ma'am, we can talk after the meeting if you want to stick around. All right, I try to be responsive to people in my emails back to them. Okay, the appointments at the last affordable housing meeting, there were requests to create a subcommittee. There are 4 aldermen on that subcommittee, and then you asked the mayor to come forward with 3 additional ones. You asked that these be folks that have experience in real estate development as well as financing of real estate. We put 3 candidates forward tonight, and Alderman Fisk, the one thing I would say about these is in choosing or putting forward developers and folks, I specifically looked for folks that did not have any active projects going on in Evanston right now, but that knew Evanston in this area. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just concerned because this is an important committee. It's basically going to be rewriting our inclusionary housing ordinance, and I think the folks from the community that are serving on the committee ought to have demonstrated experience in affordable housing, and I don't see that in all cases, so I will be voting against the appointments.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Fisk. Alderman Rainey.
I think they need to have more than that. My concern was one of the people on here that I have just so much respect for is Jolene Saul. And if I could put anybody on a committee, I would put her on a committee. But I think she might be too. She's not functioning right now. She's a Brinshore person, right? So is she not connected to the city?
So Jolene Saul is a member. She is a member of the ZBA. As I understand from city staff, they have no active. Plan Commission. As I understand, no active projects going on in Evanston right now.
Brinshore does.
That's what I'm told.
And Brinshore is not related in any way to the city right now?
I was told they were not. Yeah, project was completed. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take a roll, seeing no more ups.
Oh, sorry. I'm so late tonight. I'm sorry. So I share, I don't know these people. I'm totally trusting you all. But I do share Alderman Fisk. I'm fine with them having real estate experience. I think that's important, but I would like them to have had some experience in affordable housing, as well as, I don't know, a little more advocacy. I guess my concern, and then from this screaming people here tonight, is that we have a committee of developers and come back with something and people think that the fix was in and it was only real estate people. And I know some of that we can't get away from perception and what people think in their mind, but to have someone who can say that they have done whatever affordable housing development or work or advocacy or something, I think would be important, because then we know that this is crafted in a way from someone with some kind of track record.
Alderman Rainey?
We don't think Lynn Robinson can do that.
I don't know Lynn Robinson.
We couldn't hear you.
I mean, I think Lynn Robinson has dealt with that very seriously.
Yep. Alderman Fisk?
Mr. Mayor, would it be helpful if we made some suggestions to you? I mean, are you open to making the committee a little bit larger? Or?
I mean, so I followed, right, the rules that you guys
Yeah,
laid down
I know
before,
you
which
did.
was said, hey, we want development, we want real estate finance, and that's what I've brought the city council. I am certainly, what I would suggest is the council move forward with these, but if the council says, hey, you know what, we're willing to make this an 8 or a 9-person committee, because right now it's 7 people, okay, with 4 aldermen and 3 outsiders. If you say, hey, we want 2 more, and we would like them to be, you know, people that come out of the affordable housing world that work for a nonprofit affordable housing, we can do that. Or if you said, I actually want it to be somebody that is in need of affordable housing, I'd like them on this committee, we can do that.
I don't think that's not going to make it what we need it to be. We need people who understand the foundation and the financing of housing. That's what we need.
That's what you guys discussed at the affordable housing meeting. Let's go Alderman Revelle and then Alderman Ruth Simmons.
I think I'm echoing Alderman Rainey. What I would look for is somebody who can help me understand how a developer decides how many affordable units he or she can put into a project, and how do they run those calculations to decide what's doable and not doable. So that is the kind of expertise that I'm looking for.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Well, that's why we need a developer with experience with affordable housing in their residential units, so that we can know how they decide about that. And I'm just worried that the committee doesn't include that.
I think or just again looking at these different folks, I can say Kent Swanson. Well, they built the Chicago Maine project here, his company, the O'Donnell Company. He wasn't there at the time. Has been at firms that are building, you know, with inclusionary housing policies elsewhere. So we can take all these appointments together. You guys can tell me if you want, hey, a different person. I'm hearing mixed things up here. Alderman Simmons.
So I support what you're saying about the background, but I do think that we need to add someone from the advocacy community, someone that kind of supports the voice of those that need housing. So that might be someone from the nonprofit world or someone that's overcome barriers to affordable housing. I don't object to these, but I would like to add someone to balance that committee out.
Okay. Should we move it if we're going to increase it? Should we move it from 7 to 9 instead of an even number of 8?
Yes. Could we think about it and give you ideas and not just come up with something?
Yeah.
Is it possible we can just hold it and try to figure this out?
Let's approve these and have a rules meeting to expand the committee.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a special committee the council's creating. You don't need to go to rules. So if you'd like to go from 7 to 9, you can just say you want to go to 7 to 9. And I think it's just a matter of, do you wish to act on the 3 before you tonight? Do you wish to hold them for a meeting or 2 with the other members? I think that's the questions before you.
I think we should hold them. I would say move it.
I'm inclined to act on the 3 and expand the committee. That way we just.
I second that.
Is there a motion?
All right. So the motion put forward is to move these 3 forward. Can you take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Ruth Simmons?
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin?
Yes.
Alderman Revelle? Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Alderman Fleming?
Aye.
Alderman Fisk?
No.
Alderman Braithwaite? Alderman Nguyen? Alderman Wilson?
Okay, so these three appointments will be on the committee, and then is there a general consensus that this group would like to include, have me include 2 additional members?
Yes.
Okay, I'm taking that as a general consensus. Okay, I will, and you would like them to have affordable housing experience. Okay, obviously. All right. All right.
Possible someone from the not-for-profit community
Okay.
who works on housing issues.
But involved. Okay, and I've got 2. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And I would ask you guys, if you have suggestions for me, please go ahead and email me, okay, this week. That would be great. Okay. Now we are going to move back to the SP2, okay, in case you forgot. All right, we still have more on our agenda tonight. SP2 is the 2018 proposed budget adjustments. Our city manager and city staff have been working with each of us, and I know they have some discussion tonight for the council to consider.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's 11:05. We need you to have an executive session on labor negotiations. We have another meeting scheduled next Monday evening, currently to start at 7 o'clock. Would you perhaps consider starting at 6 o'clock next week and not doing any further discussion on the budget tonight? And it's basically a one-item agenda. We'll have the ordinances for some of the fee changes and things for introduction. I think we're on track to make several adjustments, so we've gone ahead and prepared those ordinances. I would ask that you make sure to read Mr. Lyons' memo. There are some adjustments we've needed to make with the property tax. We are proposing adding an adjustment to the gasoline tax. We've got information in there on forestry issues. There is a job description that we're looking to provide for you for the victim services positions. Director Thomas Smith has been out of town. She's returned. I think she was here. She's in the hallway. And we'll have that to you in a few days. So if you would consider a 6 o'clock start next Tuesday, then we could, or next Monday, I'm sorry, Monday the 20th of November, we could dispense with the rest for this evening and just go into executive session and be done.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think we should just go into executive session.
Okay. Okay.
And have a 6 o'clock start? 6 o'clock versus 7 o'clock start?
And a 6 o'clock
Yes.
start.
Okay. Okay, so if everybody's good, we'll do a 6 o'clock start and SP2. Give me 1 second.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, one final point. You'll note in the budget balancing worksheet, there is the reduction for the city council's budget, which we've not yet discussed. There's also a reduction for the city clerk's budget. The city clerk has talked with the budget staff. He wishes to move forward with an additional staff member, which is referenced in the budget memo. I think Clerk Reed, we're planning on providing some additional information to the council, perhaps.
Which can happen next week. It's not an additional, it's just maintaining the staffing level that was in 2007, that was provided in 2017.
So to put a point on that, the current proposed budget has 1 deputy city clerk, not 2 deputy city clerks. And the city clerk would like the council to consider 2 deputy city clerks. Is that a fair assessment?
Maintaining, yes, the current level.
But it's not maintaining, it is different from the base budget. So
we can talk about that on the 20th?
The clerk wished to point that out this evening, so we can talk about it next week.
And there is a budget memo already or coming?
There is a reference to that. The clerk, I don't know if he's going to be proposing any additional justification for that.
Yes, I will separately present
reduced in the
my
office.
office's
Okay,
budget.
perfect, thank you.
Very good. So we'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Alderman Fisk?
So let me just get this straight, Wally. So all of the things that we've talked about before about including in the budget in terms of revenue or whatever are going to be for discussion next Monday night.
That's correct. The council really has made no changes. The staff has put back in the victim services, the youth services position. So that position has been added back in Mr. Lyons' memorandum. We've had to make some adjustments on the property tax. levy, which we're not asking the council to consider an additional property tax increase, but instead some other adjustments, including an increase to the gasoline tax. So any other adjustments the council wishes to make needs to be further discussed, and we've done a straw vote in the past. That would be appropriate for next Monday evening. I know Alderman Fleming has some issues that she wishes to bring before the council. So there's probably 6-8 issues that are still, in my estimation, still unresolved with the council. So next Monday evening would be the evening to resolve those.
Okay, because I keep asking my same questions and they never appear. So I'm assuming that they will be addressed next Monday night.
Okay, if I would ask that you let me know or Mr. Lyons know if there's a specific question. We have 50 some odd budget memos, I think a new record. So if we are missing something in all seriousness, please let us know, because we would like to try to be done next Monday evening.
Yes, no, I would like to be done too.
Okay, all right.
So you don't want any tonight? You don't? You want them in writing?
If you, yes, please let Mr. Lyons know. We'll have additional memos for you by the end of the week. Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's go with call of the awards. Alderman Ruth Simmons.
Our award meeting this week will be canceled. I'll be at National League of Cities and unable to have our award meeting. Thank you.
Alderman Safran.
Just want to remind everybody about the new stop sign coming on Harrison at Marcy.
All right. Make sure to stop, everyone. Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
No report.
Alderman Fleming.
There will be a Ninth Ward meeting on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at Reba Place. I think it's called Ministry Center, so there'll be an email that comes out. And I also want to congratulate Sketchbook Brewery. I believe they just celebrated 4 years. And while they are not technically in the Ninth Ward, 2 of their owners do live in the Ninth Ward. So congratulations.
Great. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
A couple of quick items, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to congratulate the YWCA. They had a phenomenal week, and they deserve a round of applause. The first was their event that was hosted by Lisa Altenberg and also Lonnie Bearfield. They had over 600 attendees and basically honored their last 10 years of honorees. Special note to Honorable Dolores Holmes and our own Director Vonda Thomas. They had over 600 attendees. They raised over $200K during their paddle race. And I think if anything that, for anyone that attended the event, it was very well organized, that we definitely need a banquet venue that hosts over 500. I think we're really missing opportunities every time I have to go, or we have to go outside of Evanston to host large events. So I just wanted to make that note. The other wonderful news, the YWCA finished in first place. They raised over $556,403 for their Purple Purse Tour. And a result of placing first, they received $100K. And I hope I wrote this down right. I believe it's from the Allstate, one of their foundation. Their foundation. So great job to Karen Singer and her staff. And thank you very much for all the wonderful work that you do here in town. The other thing that I attended with the mayor and a few other folks here in town was the Art of Evolution Theater Company, partnered with Mudlark, and they did a 4-day presentation, which was just phenomenal. Talented cast of youth. They were presenting on issues that surrounded race, and I'll tell you, in all of the community discussions that I've had over the years, I was really impressed by the young talent and their ability to take on some serious issues and stereotypes from their own perspective. I don't know when and where we'll see them again, but I definitely think it's something to be paid attention to. So my last thing is a referral to the plan and development. There's a project in the second ward. We've talked about it. It's 1223 Hartree. I would like for Alderman Nguyen to put that on the agenda for discussion, to discuss the specifically the project timeline between what our city staff is recommending versus the high school. Thank you.
Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Wilson, can you lead us into executive session?
Yes, pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. The exception is 5 ILCS 120/2A and C1.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this meeting is recessed into executive session.